Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another week here at What's Going Down podcast. I am your host, big time Jimmy Larson, and of course, my co-host is here, Mr. CT Bishop.
Thank you, baby. Thank you. How you doing? What's going down?
Is that Mr. CT Bishop or Cheech Marin?
A combination of both. I figure with what we're talking about today and Halloween coming up, I might as well practice some kind of accent.
There you go. We'll get into that in a minute. We want to also take the time to mention, as you see, we do have our email now in our thumbnail there for you to send in, because we are going to be running a Halloween costume contest, which is going on now. You can already submit for it, because on October 31st, Halloween, we will be live. It is a Saturday, and we do have our podcast 2 weeks from tonight. It will not be the radio format you are hearing currently. You will see myself and CT Bishop live on camera in costume, and we want to see you in costume as well. So you can submit your photos of yourself and your children, whoever from your family, in costume to be a part of the contest.
That includes
naughty
pets.
Entries will not make air, however. Where can they send their questions for this show, and where can they send those pictures if not to the email?
Okay. If they can send it to the email, like you said, right? But if they have questions, we also have Discord. If you got Discord, the Discord server invite link, it is in the description box below. Click on it, hit the link, and join us on Discord. You can ask us questions that way. Or you know what? I'm gonna add one more thing, just for the heck of it. If you got Twitter, I have Twitter. And they can send questions at Rev Mercado. That's the @ REVMERCADO. That's at REV as in Victor, M as in Michael, ERCADO. They can reach me on Twitter that way. If they don't want to do it through What's Going Down Today at gmail.com.
Well, there you go. And again, you can also submit your questions for this broadcast, and of course in the live chat as well. And we will answer those questions later on, and any comments we will also mention during this discussion.
And there's a comment. There is a comment. It says from APT Fitness. That's our buddy John. What's up, guys? That's gonna be a sight to see. I'm gonna be Donald Trump. Oh, so he's gonna be one of the most hated individuals in America, and also
oh boy,
and also a liked individual. Some people hate him, some people like him. It depends on who they are. But if he wants to be Donald Trump, I hope he can pull off the orange face.
I just seen earlier today a post from a couple days ago by Elvira. Mm-hmm. She did a Halloween song parody about COVID-19 canceling Halloween. Yep. And she actually made a joke like that, saying how we all have to worry about the big, scary orange face this year. And then she holds up a jack-o'-lantern and says, "Who did you think I was talking about?"
I know. I was laughing hysterically when you sent me that link. I was watching it. I saw it like 3 or 4 times, just laughing hysterically.
Well, this is a segue. I did bring this up for a reason. Yep. That we are going to start revealing my reviews a week early for listeners of this podcast as an exclusive. So if you want to, because I do have another show, which you can check out on my YouTube channel, Big Time Jimmy Larson's YouTube channel. There is a link in the description to that. At the Movies. Every Friday night, a new movie review is added. Pretty soon, there will be some TV show reviews and more coming there as well. But right now, we have the At the Movies show. Yesterday, a new episode 8, came out for Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen's Double Toil and Trouble, because we are in the middle of spooky month. And next week on that show will be, to date, my best show that we have produced, and that is for Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. That's why I said that was a segue.
That was fun. That was fun to edit.
This review came out great. Myself and CT Bishop did a tremendous job on this one. His tremendous editing skills, as well as my hilarious take on the movie, and so much work goes into these shows. We've talked about that before, so I'm not going to go into that now because we want to get it right into the discussion as well.
Hmm.
But besides that show, where can they check out you, CT Bishop?
All right. Well, on my YouTube channel, Josue Skits, where I do my comedy skits. It's in the description box below. Also with Tuesday Night Tussle. Tuesday Night Tussle is another channel where, you know what, well, you gotta see it. If you like seeing people doing stupid things on camera and recording their fights, and you know and you want to see me make fun of it, that's where you go. And it's in the description box below. Tuesday Night Tussle and Jose Skits.
You can check out the archives of Tuesday Night Tussle to see appearances by me. And I may be back there soon, eventually.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping, man. Because we're a team, man. We're a team, and we always come up with awesome stuff.
So let's get right into this. Last week on the program, I did mention
Mm-hmm.
that WWE is reviving after 20 years. They are reviving the Halloween Havoc brand for NXT. I mistakenly thought it was going to be a takeover event. It is not. This is actually taking place on their Wednesday night regular broadcast, Wednesday night, October 28th.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately.
I am just mind boggled by that.
Yeah.
They're giving this away as a regular show.
Yep.
One thing that to mention, and we will mention the origin of this in just a bit when we start our main discussion, but
Mhm.
they're reviving Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal, a concept that we saw a couple of times in the past. And like I said, we will discuss those because we're going to discuss the good and the bad
Yep.
of every Halloween Havoc. But wow, why would you revive that? The only thing missing this year, it's like, why not just bring back the Thunderdome cage?
Okay. You know, WWE is they're not new to the whole wheel spinning concept. The roulette wheel that they've
Raw
done.
roulette.
Yeah, come on. It was ridiculous when WCW did it. It was ridiculous when WWE started doing it. Why are they gonna bring it back? Why are they gonna bring it back? What's the point? It brings nothing to the product. Just goofy crap that does not belong in professional wrestling. I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel, man.
Speaking of, well, it could be done right, and we're going to talk about when it was done wrong, and we're going to talk about when it was done right. Let's get right into this.
Go right ahead.
We're going to go year by year here,
Mhm.
so that there's no confusing. We're not going to really jump around here, so you can feel free to add in what you want.
Mhm.
I'm only going to focus on again things that were good, things that were bad, the standout moments. Because there's a lot to talk about, and let's get on with it. Beginning in 1989,
Mhm.
WCW produced a pay-per-view called Halloween Havoc. And this show, I will say right off the bat, to this day, is my favorite pay-per-view that WCW, NWA, whatever, had ever produced.
Mhm.
To this day. Is it the best pay-per-view they produced? No. But it's my favorite of all the pay-per-views.
Definitely, definitely. I think, personally speaking, where they were still in that transition from NWA to just WCW, even though they had some booking problems, as people know from the rise and fall of WCW and all that. But they still had some solid booking. The ideas were decent. It was just they were not trying to be cartoony like what the WWF at the time was producing. They were trying to
You
bring.
wouldn't know that based on the cover of this event, though, with the Road Warriors.
Yeah, I'm looking at it myself right now with
The
the.
colorful paint they were wearing is totally cartoony and comic book style. But
Yeah.
this, this show, though, yeah, the Road Warriors, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But two, this one in 1990 were actually produced as NWA Halloween Havoc, despite the fact that that cover says WCW Halloween Havoc. They were under the National Wrestling Alliance banner
Mm-hmm.
for these two events.
Mm-hmm.
89, no, did not open with a good match, so we won't mention that. However, second match on the card, this is one of the best matches on the card,
Mm-hmm.
and it is the greatest six-man tag match you will ever see. Samoan SWAT team, aka Samoa and Fatu. Later, they would go to the WWE as the Head Shrinkers,
Mm-hmm.
and Fatu, of course, would later become Rikishi. They teamed with the Samoan Savage, who was best known as the Tonga Kid, and Tamaton, I believe was they called her Tonga Tom.
Mm-hmm.
He was part of the Islanders in the WWE before this, and he had put on a substantial amount of weight in just a year.
Yes, it did.
Look at him at WrestleMania 4 in 1988, and then look at him here in 1989. What happened?
Exactly.
But he became more menacing,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And by the way, this show, it is available on the WWE Network, but I recommend that you track down the original broadcast
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to watch this. And I do recommend you watch this because, like I said, I love this show. WWE Network does not do it justice because the music is dubbed over. This was back when they still used real music, and the Samoans come out to the theme song from Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
and they have these island dancers there in the darkness juggling these flaming sticks. And seeing that with a strobe light with that Michael Myers Halloween music while these guys are coming out and they're just like sticking out the tongue and showing how scary they are. It's an amazing sight to see.
I mean, it just made
And
him
that in
look.
itself.
Yeah, it made him look more menacing. It made him look, like you did not want to. Mess with these
WWE
guys.
Network makes it look cartoony with the dubbed over music.
Yes, it's.
It doesn't look scary like it did, and it's just so good. And for whatever reason, back here was when the Samoan SWAT team was managed by Oliver Humperdinck,
Mm-hmm.
who had also just left the WWE after his run of managing Bam Bam Bigelow.
Mm-hmm.
And this is shortly, well, not shortly, but it's a few years off from him appearing with the Fabulous Freebirds as Big Daddy Dink, but we will save that for another show.
Yep.
But here, the Samoan Savage and the Samoan SWAT team, it's like I said, it's a six-man tag, as they are taking on the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, and their partner Steve Dr. Deft Williams with Jim Cornette in tow. And they are the baby faces in this match, and they are super over. We have to mention, by the way, I forgot to mention,
Mm-hmm.
this show took place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
at the Philadelphia Civic Center. And that Philadelphia crowd, as they were all the time with ECW, they are red hot. And also in the front row, you will recognize an ECW regular as Hat Guy.
Yep.
The guy with the straw hat, him and the guy who was always with him. I'm not sure if that's his brother or his father. The guy with the sunglasses and the mustache.
Yeah, I think it was. I think
They
that
are
was his
both.
brother.
They are both in the front row at this show as well, and he's also wearing his hat and all at this show. So that's a cool sight to see. Many years before ECW, that you would see them here at this show. This match is red hot. It's about 20 minutes long, and it's just crazy insane. It's all over the place. Everybody gets their spots in, and it's just a sight to see, like I said. And Steve Dr. Deft Williams is just like the most over guy in the match. Every time he's in the ring, the crowd goes absolutely insane. You have never seen a crowd like this in the last, decade, at least. Maybe longer.
No, I'll tell you this. Is like a lot of people, especially the newer fans of sorts, they only know Dr. Death Steve Williams from his short run with WWE with the Brawl for All and all that nonsense, But Dr. Death Steve Williams, actually, he was just an awesome worker. He was an awesome wrestler. I mean, he had a long, he had a good career that, he earned that name, Dr. Death. I mean, and if people don't really do their history and going into like this match and other matches like it, shoot, they don't know what they're missing. But like you said, I mean, Dr. Death Steve Williams, he was just like super over, and it's really a shame of the direction where WWE took him afterwards. But I was just, I was scared. I was legitimately scared of this guy as a kid, just because of the name Doctor Death. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah,
And this match, it's like I said, everybody gets their spots, and even Cornette and Humperdinck get involved as well. But
definitely.
the Samoans do their spots where they're hard heads. We see that come into
Yep.
play several times in the match. At one point, I forget who it was, but one of the Samoans actually bites Bobby Eaton's arm. And I got to mention too, the commentary team here is my favorite commentary team of all time. By the way, I love a lot of commentary teams, but my favorite commentary team of all time is right here: Bob Caudle and Jim Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim Ross even calls it when he's biting. He goes, "Look at him biting him. He's biting him." And then we see the teeth marks in Bobby Eaton's arm because he actually did bite him. And Jim Ross even goes, "Look at the teeth marks, Bob. Look at the teeth marks." You don't get that kind of realism today. Today, everybody acts like they're playing a game, and they don't act like it's a legit fight. This was, and I to coin the phrase, which Paul Heyman was the first guy I ever heard say it, and I've used it ever since. I'm sure he didn't come up with it, but it's the big fight atmosphere.
Definitely.
I love the big fight atmosphere, and this match is the big fight atmosphere.
Definitely.
You feel like you got 6 guys in there trying to kill one another. And even the finish is just great. I'm not going to give it away, but it's just such a tremendous match. I love it. We're only on the first we didn't go to.
I gotta agree with you. Definitely, the big fight atmosphere. It is. It was a match. It was a match that even as kids, right? We're watching this, and then that's what is it? The suspense and disbelief, and you're wondering what's gonna happen next. You're wondering, and every spot, every part of this match was just perfect. It was perfect in my opinion. For
Absolutely.
I can't really say anything else. It was just perfect. That's it.
I will make quick mention, by the way, I skipped over it. I'm just going to make quick mention of it. Mm-hmm. The opening match on this was Tom Zink, who was best known as the Z-Man in WWE. But Tom Zink wrestles as against Mike Rotunda,
yep.
IRS in WWE. The two of them, it's not that they had a bad match. It's just that it drags way too long and really it kills the whole match. But Mike Rotunda, you could see signs of him, how amazing he was even back then. Mm-hmm. It's just that no offense to Tom Zink, sometimes I like Tom Zink. WrestleMania 3, Can-Am Connection. I love Tom Zink in the Can-Am Connection. But Tom Zink was not a great singles competitor, and he really brought this match down, and that's why I didn't mention it. But more so than that was the match that came after the 6-man tag, because they went with Tommy Rich versus the Cuban Assassin, and it dragged on for like 10 minutes. Yeah. And it's horrible.
Yeah, no,
the one thing to note on this, I will mention, mm-hmm. is that Tommy Rich came out to this song in that, I don't know the name of the song, so I'm not going to say it, but the same song was featured in the bar fight scene in No Holds Barred.
Yeah.
And No Holds Barred came out the same year.
Yep.
So as a kid watching this, because I had just seen No Holds Barred in the theater, and then I go and see this pay-per-view and hear that song, and I remember when Tommy Rich came out, I remember thinking, because I was 5 years old, and I'm thinking, oh my God, he's in No Holds Barred. He wasn't, and then Tommy Rich, of course, we all know later on would go to ECW as the Dom Tommy Rich, part of the Full-Blooded Italians, even though he's not Italian.
Go
Moving on.
Go figure.
Moving on, we go to a tag team match. Jim Cornette is back again with the baby faces, if that's what you want to call them, but they definitely did not seem like that here. This match is a tremendous match for all the wrong reasons. The Fabulous Freebirds, Jimmy Garvin and Michael Hayes. Everybody hates this incarnation, by the way, of the Freebirds. They hate Jimmy Garvin and Michael Hayes. As a kid, you got to remember, this is the era I grew up in. I didn't grow up with Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts. So to me, this was my Freebirds, and I liked them. I can't say why other people don't like them, other than because they weren't the originals. But to me, they were the originals because they were the first ones I seen. You know?
Well, you again, you got to think about it. It's like, okay, we grew up with the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, and then
I grew up when they were the Midnight Rockers. I remember watching them in the AWA. But go on.
But you get what I'm saying is that the Midnight Rockers to the Rockers, and then later on, the new Rockers, which was Al Snow, what was his name?
Leaf Cassidy.
Yeah. And Marty. It was like
a parody of Leif Garrett and David Cassidy.
Yeah, so it was for people that that
I don't think anybody liked the new Rockers. Bad example.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm just saying. Well, I knew some people that liked them for whatever reason, but.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it was crazy, but it's just using that as an example. Is that it was the same thing with the Freebirds?
So
some people
let me ask you this.
Freebirds, and
let me ask you this: those people that like the new Rockers, do they get visiting hours in the Nut House?
I don't know. I haven't talked to them in years.
Anyway,
last time I visited, they just got into the house.
I don't apologize for that joke because, come on, even Al Snow hates that incarnation. He was in it.
Yep.
But anyway, so the Fabulous Freebirds, Jimmy Garvin and Michael Hayes, took on the Dynamic Dudes, Johnny Ace, a.k.a. the brother of Road War Animal, rest in peace, and Shane Douglas. Now, Douglas, I always liked Douglas. Yep. I thought he was a great wrestler, especially years later when he had the big match with Bam Bam Bigelow at November to Remember 97. Douglas could go. He could work.
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Ace, no. I never saw anything in Johnny Ace, ever. Even his Japan matches, I don't see anything in him that he's only there because of his brother.
Even when he was the interim general manager of Raw, I didn't
Which
see
happened
anything.
Because of CM Punk's comments.
Yeah, but even when he had that, I couldn't see. I mean, he cannot cut a promo. He could not work a match.
And he talks like Marty Funkhauser from Curb Your Enthusiasm, which Punk actually mentioned in a promo. Yeah. And again, R.I.P. to Super Dave, who portrayed that character. He's also passed, but
yeah. But Shane Douglas, he was the heart and soul of the Dynamic Dudes.
And neither guy could ride a skateboard, and you could tell, and yet they looked so awkward carrying these things out to the ring instead of riding them out to the ring.
Yeah.
but the Philadelphia crowd,
yeah,
they wanted none of this.
No.
The dudes are supposed to be the baby faces. The Philadelphia crowd completely just ripped them. And Michael Hayes, to his credit, him and Jimmy Garvin, they got heat for this, but I loved it. They actually both just said, okay, screw it. Let's play off the fans. And they played the heels, but they did it in a way where they're kind of playing baby faces to the crowd, which is really hard to really explain. So you have to just see it to believe it.
Exactly.
But it's just so funny to watch. And the audience just completely turns on the Dynamic Dudes. They want nothing to do with it.
Well, here's my thing, okay? The fact that they were managed by Jim Cornette, okay? And all my life, anytime I see Jim Cornette being a manager, he was always a heel manager.
Again, this was when he was the babyface, though, because he was the babyface earlier in the 6-man tag match, too.
No, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that me personally, even though they were supposed to be the babyfaces, same thing with earlier in the match. To me, I always saw anytime somebody was managed by Jim Cornette, they were the heels, they were the bad guys to me. So it's like, I was cheering for the Freebirds. I like the Freebirds. Like you said, they were this was the Freebirds.
They were cool.
Yeah, exactly. So to
The only
see.
time I didn't like the Freebirds was when they came out. I believe it was '92
Yep.
when they came out with their new music. I'm a free bird, and what's your excuse? And
Yeah.
Michael Hayes actually tried to defend that,
Yeah.
saying that that's a real term, meaning what's your excuse for acting like a rebel? I'm a free bird, so I have a reason. But
Hmm.
no, I don't get that. I hear I'm a free bird. What's your excuse? I hear that sentence makes no sense grammar wise.
Hmm.
The song sucks. Jimmy Garvin, the first night they used it, he forgot all the words. So they're coming out and they were supposed to lip sync it. And the audio didn't play. And so they had to sing it, and Jimmy Garvin couldn't. It's hilarious, but
I
that's
must
another story as
I
well.
must
But
I must have missed that one, but I got to look it up definitely.
oh my God, it's great. I think it's 1992,
Mm.
but I can't remember exactly when it was. But it's a really funny sight to see. But we're not talking about that anyway. But yeah, this match is not good for any reason other than watching the way that the Freebirds are reacting to the crowd response to the dynamic dudes.
Hmm.
That's the only thing that makes this match interesting. The other thing that is interesting to note, though, is I never noticed this at first. It was mentioned on our podcast. Michael Hayes does not have his tag team title here because this match was for the NWA tag team titles.
Hmm.
Garvin has his title, but Hayes does not have his. And it was asked, well, did he do that because he wanted to show rebellion that they knew they weren't dropping the belts? And the idea gets brought up, but I have not heard a confirmation one way or the other that Michael Hayes may have lost the title somewhere at a bar or something and didn't want to admit it to the company.
Yeah, that's
So it's
that that
very
was
interesting, and I would love to hear that.
no, that was a story that I've heard many times. Meeting a lot of the legends that I have met. Um, and they're just swapping stories, and I'm just listening. I'm just like a little schoolboy listening to a teacher. And a lot of the legends that I've met. Like it's they they were telling me, well, this person told me this person, and I'm, so that was a lot of that was the same story being brought up by different legends who either they were there or they weren't there, but they heard it from someone who was there, and I'm like, what that that makes sense.
I
You
would love to
lost it.
hear Michael himself actually not kayfabe it and tell the truth about it. I would
Oh,
love to hear
definitely.
that.
Oh, definitely. Just a shoot video, a shoot interview, and just lay it out what the heck happened. Definitely.
But moving on, we go to another tag match. This one is filled with tag matches, but this one is very interesting. Rick Steiner in the weeks leading up to Halloween Havoc and months really. Scott was still pretty brand new to the company, but everybody knew Rick. Rick was being hounded by a fan in the audience known as Robin Green,
Hmm.
and she was a huge Rick Steiner fan. And then she turned on Rick, and Scott kept trying to warn Rick, hey, that she's not who you should be dealing with. Of course, Robin Green was Nancy Sullivan, Kevin Sullivan's wife. We're not going to mention who she married later and what happened to her, but she
We
would
are
become woman.
we already
And
discussed that in a previous podcast.
we did. She became woman uh, right before this, and she told Rick Steiner in an interview that at Halloween Havoc, him and Scott were going to meet their doom. And thus, she showed up at this pay per view with a tag team known as Woman's Team of Doom on this night.
Hmm.
And it was two big guys under masks. And the Philadelphia crowd was not the crowd they should have debuted these guys in front of
No, it
because
wasn't.
everybody in the audience, even in the nosebleed areas, realized this is Ron Simmons and Butch Reed, and they were chanting Reed and Simmons names all through the match.
Hmm.
They knew. As a kid, of course, I did not know. Even when they unmasked, I didn't know who they were.
I remember hearing my uncles. They were, as we're watching the pay per view. I remember my uncles there screaming, "That's Ron Simmons. That's Bush," and I'm like, no, it can't be them. It can't be them. My family watch wrestling all the time. So when they were on the mask, I was like, you're right, you're right. And I was just I just popped. I was always
Well, I had it as a kid when they unmasked. I didn't even recognize Butch Reed from WWE because Butch Reed had the blonde hair,
mhm.
and so I didn't recognize without that blonde hair that hey, that's the natural Butch Reed. But yeah, so Reed and Simmons, this is a not a great match. It's not terrible. It runs too long. It's like 16 minutes.
Yep.
But the thing to note here too, by the way, going back to music, is that the Steiner brothers back here came out to Welcome to the Jungle,
Mm-hmm.
Guns N' Roses. And not on the WWE broadcast. Like I said, you got to see the original broadcast. It's great.
You have to.
But yeah, so that match, nothing special there.
Nope.
We move on to a match that ran too long for Luger.
Yep.
Had like 17 minutes.
I think every match Luger has been in ran too long.
The Yokozuna match is definitely the biggest example of that at SummerSlam 93.
Yeah.
Luger was just so winded and gone by like the 10-minute mark. But here he's got somebody that could help carry the match. And this match actually gets a lot of crap from people. They don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have heard people, though, who agree with me. This is actually one of the best matches in Luger's career. It's definitely in the top 5. Lex Luger defends the United States Championship against Flying Brian Pillman.
Oh no, I agree. When you have, when like you said, Brian Pillman, he carried the match. When anytime Luger was with a solid talent, a solid worker that can really carry the match and make it, really look good, I think that would be where Luger's best matches were and are. Anything else where they're trying to rely on his skill, and no.
Well, what works here is because Luger's got that well-grounded muscle
Mm-hmm.
that he could theoretically, if he could get his hands on Pillman, he could just beat him to oblivion.
Yep.
And meanwhile, Pillman has the high-flying maneuvers that Lex doesn't, and he's using that speed and agility and those moves to try and counteract Lex's muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. It's so good. It's like I said, watch it and judge it for yourself, because a lot of people, they are quick to hate this match.
Yeah.
And then there are other people like me who say, no, you have to look at it for what it is.
I think
people go, what a waste of Pillman. But
yeah, I
thought of it not as a waste of Pillman.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, what a great way to harness Lex Luger,
I thought it was an excellent, like, David versus Goliath scenario that that you see a lot in wrestling. I thought it because with Brian Pillman, like you said, with his speed, his high flying, again, it just that's what made the match. That's what made the match to be one of Luger's, like you said, top 5. It was definitely with that David versus Goliath mentality. Small guy versus big guy. I mean, it was just it was really tremendous. If you think about it that way.
Absolutely. We go to a backstage promo, which I love this promo. Sting and Ric Flair are getting ready for the main event, and Sting looks tremendous at this show. I'm going on record. I love the look at Great American Bash. I've told people more than once that's my second favorite look in Sting's career. Third would be his look at Bash at the Beach 96 with the black hair with the colorful paint. This is kind of the precursor to that look. Sting has this amazing colorful paint with the blue and the green, and it just looks so cool. He's decked out. And then hearing Sting, because Flair's going on about the match, he goes, "Tell him, Stinger." And Sting's just like, "It's Halloween, and the Stinger is ready." And it's like, he's just so enthusiastic that this is like, wow, this is going to be good.
Definitely. I agree.
Earlier tonight, by the way, there was a promo with the debut of Chris Cruz making his debut. And Chris Cruz lately, I love Chris Cruz lately because he's the only guy who is willing to call the State Athletic Commission on AEW for the garbage match that Kenny Omega and John Moxley had, and he got them in trouble with the State Athletic Commission. So Chris Cruz gets total bonus points, in my opinion.
Definitely.
But Chris Cruz performed a interview at the start of this with Bruno Sammartino, who was going to be the referee in the main event, and I love Bruno, but man, he could really drag you down with his promos. Especially because like he doesn't get the concept too much of this, and he's a traditionalist, which is why I wonder what the heck did they put him in there for. I get why he's at this show, but he should not have been involved in this match. But we'll get to that in a minute. The next match on the card, another tag team match. Most of the matches on this show are tag team matches. That's crazy. But and yeah, it's like I said, it's my favorite show that they put on, so it's crazier than that too. But the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, with Paul Ellering, defeat the Skyscrapers, Dan Spivey and Sid Vicious, with Teddy Long. This match is a train wreck, and yet I love it. Does that make sense? I'll explain. The Road Warriors are my favorite tag team of all time. We had a long discussion about this 2 weeks ago on the program. But here they just show off that skill of how they can dominate, but at the same time they're up against two big guys in Spivey and Sid, and they didn't know how to work with them, so to speak. Because here, not only are they big guys, so they got to kind of not be able to dominate, but both Sid and Spivey, they're not the best workers. Nope. And Hawk and Animal, this was before they really had a lot of that down themselves. So it's just a chaos match. And then
I think
what
Sid,
also doesn't.
I was just gonna
go on.
I was gonna say I think Sid and Spivey, they're like the Great Khali of back then.
I wouldn't go that far. It's not that bad.
Not that bad, but to a degree, with the fact that
Khali is like a giant Gonzalez, Elegante, which we'll get to in a little bit on the show.
But
from other years.
But the fact that they were supposedly not supposed to dominate the way they do, and I think personally the match was a cluster. You know what?
The big problem here too is, unless you are a fan of the company, like if this was your first take on this company, you wouldn't understand the finish. Exactly. Because Teddy Long is managing Spivey and Vicious, and he's carrying a giant key. And anybody just tuning in for the first time is going to be like, what the heck's the significance of that key? And as a kid even, I actually knew it, but at the same time I realized I would have probably thought it was like the key to the cage in the main event. But it's actually nowhere on this show is this explained or ever seen. But Teddy Long was also managing Norman the Lunatic, who would later go to WWE as Bastion Booger. But Norman the Lunatic was supposedly, here's a segue to what I mentioned earlier, he was from the Nut House.
Yep.
And Teddy Long carried around the key that let him in and out of his padded room, because he would only let him out of the padded room to wrestle and then put him back in. Gimmickly. It's a stupid gimmick. Jim Hurd. Blame him. But so Teddy Long has this key, and he throws it into the Skyscrapers, and they use it on Animal or Hawk, one of them. I think it was Hawk. And then Hawk gets a hold of the key, and he just attacks both Skyscrapers. Referee sees them using it, and he calls a double disqualification. But he calls a double disqualification because he's seen Hawk use it. But then they say, oh, well, the Skyscrapers used it first, so let's say they're disqualified and the Road Warriors get the win, which I think was supposed to be the finish anyway, and the referee kind of goofed it up and botched it. But they did that because they wanted the Road Warriors to win, so they get the big pop in Philadelphia for being the winners. But this match is like 12 minutes long. It should have been like 5 minutes.
Definitely.
And it's just not good. But I love it because I love the Road Warriors, and it is kind of chaotic, and I love chaotic Road Warrior matches.
Oh, definitely. I agree.
Ready to move on to the main event?
Go ahead, man.
All right, let's explain to our young viewers out there. There was a series called the Mad Max series, which in the States, the first one that we all really got to see was the Road Warrior. Yep. And yes, this is where the Road Warriors characters came from.
And
It's
we
also
did,
where demolition came from.
and we did
What?
cover that in a previous podcast as well.
Yes, we did. But a lot of characters from wrestling came from this.
Mhm.
Dusty Rhodes had this idea when Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome came out. He said we should have the Thunderdome cage. And yes, by the way, for you new listeners, new viewers who are saying, wait, Thunderdome? Yes, WWE has taken the name and partial concept for their Thunderdome that they do now for television for the audience, but it's not what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Thunderdome in the movie, really quick, I will say, Mel Gibson gets into this cage with a guy who reminds everybody of Festus. And he has a match where there are weapons attached to the cage. This concept was later used in TNA during the lethal lockdown when they would have weapons at the top of the cage that you could use.
Mhm.
But basically, this cage is curved at the top, so you can't crawl out of it. And it's basically like the cell that you see today, where it goes all the way around the ring to the floor instead of being on the ring itself.
Mhm.
And it's known as the Thunderdome cage. Then to add to it, just to make it crazier, because this match is totally overbooked, and I'm not complaining though, but they electrified the cage,
Yeah.
which makes no sense because you can't climb out of the cage anyway. So why? Because the only part that was even electrified was the top,
Mhm.
and why would you climb up there?
Exactly.
Then there are ropes hanging down from this thing. We'll get to all the reasons for these gimmicks in a minute, but I'm just explaining the setup. But there's ropes hanging from this cage. And then if that's not enough, if we're not ripping off enough movie references here, let's rip off another one. Because the match is Ric Flair and Sting. Ric Flair was a babyface at the time and was teamed with Sting. And Ole Anderson was with them because Sting was basically part of the Horsemen at this time, but the Horsemen were kind of baby faces at the time.
Mhm.
They were going up against the heels of the Great Muta and Terry Funk, who Funk had just had this feud going on with Flair, so it worked, and Sting had a feud going on with Muta, and they're managed by Gary Hart. And as I mentioned earlier, Bruno Sammartino is the guest referee, and then on top of that, like I said, this thing is totally overbooked. The way to win this match is by submission, but you can't be the one to submit. Your Ole Anderson has a towel and Gary Hart has a towel,
Yep.
and they have to throw in the towel when they think that their guys have had enough, and that's how they end this match. Now, to steal more movie references, this has no reason or merit. You know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
They decided to say, hey, they're going to terminate the match, basically. They're going to kill off their team by throwing in that towel. So what can we call them? Let's call them the Terminators. And hearing Gary Michael Capetta announce that the official Terminator for Ric Flair and Sting, Ole Anderson, and the Great Muta and Terry Funk with their Terminator, Gary Hart.
Yeah.
So next time you watch The Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, look for Gary Hart and Ole Anderson to come out as Terminators. Why? I know this is off topic for a second, but to go back, because I forgot to mention, Brian Pillman, when he came out for his entrance, they did not know what to do with Pillman at this point. They treated him like he was a high school football player, and he had a high school cheerleading team with him that came and cheered him to the ring. It was very weird. And the Road Warriors, of course, back then were still using Iron Man by Ozzy as their theme song. But anyway, back to the main event. So, if that's not enough overbooking for you, the match itself is even crazier. Right at the start, some problems started occurring with the electricity on this cage.
Yep.
And there was like some wool or some kind of fabric that was up at the top that catches fire.
Yep.
And they're trying to put the fire out, and Gary Michael Capetta is trying to make the announcements, and they're all like, what do we do about this fire? And then Muta has the most memorable moment in this match. It has no effect on this fire, but it is amazingly awesome. Muta goes up to the top rope and spits the blue mist, or red mist. Sorry, I don't know where I got blue. He spits the red mist
On the
at the
fire. Yeah.
fire. And Bob Cottle
He was
and
trying to
Jim
sell
Ross
it.
are great.
Yeah, they were
Jim Ross,
selling it.
they try to say, oh, Muda will put it out. And Bob Cottle was like, yeah, Muda will put it out. Muda went up and blew that mist, and that just put out the fire. It did not put out the fire, but it's just so funny.
It was just the
Like I
fact
said,
that they
Jim
were
Ross and Bob
selling it.
Cottle.
Yeah, the fact that they were selling it, that the Muda's mist was like powerful to put it out. It was just, oh my gosh, man.
It's so good, man.
I loved it. I loved it. It was funny because when I was
And the
going
match
back,
hadn't even started yet.
when I was going back, yeah, this week when I was going back to just kind of review some of the matches and what have you. Oh my goodness, man! Now that I'm older, I'm laughing at it, but it was just I remember as a kid, I was like, he put out the fire.
Now, here is a thing that happened to me,
Yep.
and it was horrible.
Yep.
And to this day, like I said, this is best in its original broadcast.
Yep.
However, on this night in 1989, what night was this? Let's see. This was on October 28th. Oh, ironically, this took place October 28th, 1989. The reason that's ironic is because this year's NXT Halloween Havoc is on October 28th.
Yep.
There's a fun fact. I bet they did that on purpose. I don't even know if they're aware now. However, on this night, there was a major thunder and lightning storm going on in my area of Connecticut. Right as this match starts, right after the mist spot, the match starts off, my feed went snow. My feed comes back about 10 minutes into it and goes back to snow within a minute. My feed comes back and everybody is so tired. Muda's makeup is completely gone. Sting's makeup's gone. And what the heck is going on? Now, I have seen the match since, but this is just, as a kid, it's so annoying to see. And Sting is now swinging on the rope like Tarzan, gets his leg caught in the cage, and then falls, or Terry Funk rather, gets his leg caught in the cage, and he's almost losing his leg. Sting swinging into him like Tarzan, catching him with a foot. It looks like he's right out of Peter Pan or Tarzan, like I said. And they blow the spot that's supposed to happen. They're supposed to be doing the finish, and you see them all looking around like, why is Terry and Sting not over here for the finish? It's just this crazy thing. Flair finally gets the figure four on Funk, and then Sting's doing splashes off the top on top of Funk while he's in the figure four. And then Muda gets it up there and he tries to nail Bruno Sammartino, and Bruno decks Muda.
Yep.
And while that's going on, Ole and Gary's on the rope. Ole nails Gary. Gary's arm goes flying and the towel goes flying out of his hand and lands on the shoulder of Bruno Sammartino. He sees the towel, looks around, sees Ole Anderson still holding his towel. And so, thus, Gary Hart must have threw in the towel, and the winners are Sting and Flair. Wow.
Now, here's the crazy thing for me, because around the time when Sting was doing all the splashes, okay, that's when the thunderstorm came to my area of Connecticut. And,
so you did have it as well. Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, my family we were always big professional wrestling fans, and so. Around that time, that's when the feed started cutting, over here. And
I just don't have my broadcast, by the way, like this, where you can actually see the snow and stuff happen.
So I know my uncle still has the tape, but it was funny because
I haven't burned the DVD.
Nice. Now I remember my uncle saying, he was just like, because it was a bunch of kids, and my uncles and my dad, they were like, really keeping the kayfabe for us, and and they were like, oh my gosh, the electricity from the cage ruined the video. Oh my gosh, I was like, and they're saying this in Spanish, That's
like, funny.
Oh my god. And then all of us kids were getting ticked off because it's like, why did they have electricity in the cage? They're ruining the wrestling. It was just, and then it comes back. Then it comes back. Oh my gosh, man! Then we're like, did he turn it off? Did he turn off the electricity from the cage? We were asking all these questions. It was too funny. And my uncles and my dad, they were like, I don't know. Hopefully.
That's great.
Yeah, man. You gotta love
The
it,
only
man.
other thing to note on this show is that the music, the theme song for this show is absolutely amazing.
Mhm.
You can check it out on YouTube because it's not on the broadcast, but you can look up Halloween Havoc 89 theme on YouTube and after our show, of course,
Mhm.
and you will hear this music that is really good. And it's great for your Halloween parties that you won't be having due to COVID. But anyway, moving on.
They could
'cause
have
we spent,
a Halloween Zoom party.
there you go. Or, as I said, you can spend Halloween with us on the What's Going Down podcast. We will be live on cam. Spend your Halloween with us.
In costume.
So that's 89, which I told Bishop before we went on the air, we were going to spend a lot of time on 89 since it's my favorite. And there's a couple, 98 we're going to probably spend a lot of time with. The others we're going to pretty much zip through, so we will not be here for 12 hours. But anyway,
Like normal.
moving on to Halloween Havoc 1990, known as Terror Rules the Ring.
Mhm.
And this show is absolutely horrible from top to bottom.
Yep.
The best match on the card was a dark match that did not air on television between Tim Horner and Barry Horowitz.
Mhm. You know what? I got to see if I can get Barry Horowitz on the podcast too, because
Oh, I love Barry Horowitz. Barry Horowitz was that's my role model when I was a kid. Me and Kenny, we role modeled. That was our role model.
No, definitely, especially when I was training. I was like, if I'm gonna be an enhancement talent or a jobber, I'm gonna be like Barry Horowitz. Because I didn't know him as a champion.
Well, we love the never give up attitude and pat yourself on the back.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
moving right on, the opening match of this actual show
Yep.
was Tommy Rich and Ricky Morton against the Midnight Express, who are now heels again,
Yep.
with Jim Cornette. And this match is notable for the main reason that this is the final major show the Midnights and Jim Cornette would have in the NWA.
Mhm.
And we're going to make quick mention of it. Cornette's told the story so many times. Ole Anderson in the booking basically wanted it to end with Jim Cornette getting a pumpkin stuffed on his head.
Mhm.
And he flat out refused.
Mhm.
So he didn't do it. And they, all night long, everybody's in costumes on this show. And Jim Cornette, they got him this Civil War type outfit, and they told him, be very careful with the costume. Don't get it messy or anything because it's rented and it's very expensive. Cornette made it a point to absolutely destroy this costume in every way imaginable.
Yep.
On purpose because he didn't care. He was leaving and he was mad. So that in itself is the best part of this match. But Cornette still would suffer some kind of injury. I forgot what happened to him. But moving on, Terry Taylor wrestles Bill Irwin, better known as the Goon. Horrible match. Like I said, this whole show is terrible. Brad Armstrong, I can't remember if he was Candyman at this time or not, but he defeated JW Storm. Then we get the Master Blasters. Who remembers the Master Blasters?
I totally forgot about them until I started looking up,
Al Green and Kevin Nash.
Yep.
Blade and Steel.
And this was before Kevin Nash was Oz.
If you don't know the origin, by the way, this story does not get talked about a lot.
No.
This was based off two very popular video games at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Master Blaster, which is where the tag team name the Master Blasters came from,
Mm-hmm.
and their names in the team, Blade and Steel, was from the popular NES game Blades of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going any further than that on that. But they defeat the Southern Boys, Tracy Smothers, and Steve Armstrong. Moving on.
WCW has a history of using video games for their.
Yes, indeed.
So
moving on to a match that goes on way too long.
Yeah.
The Fabulous Freebirds, Jimmy Garvin and Michael Hayes,
Mm-hmm.
with God, just with Little Richard Marley.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to talk about him, but we could all tell the reason his name, Little Richard, but defeated the Renegade Warriors, Chris Youngblood and Mark Youngblood, and this match, like I said, way too long and not entertaining. Then we move on to another tag team match. The Steiner brothers take on the Nasty Boys. This is actually not a bad match. It's not a good match, but it's not a bad match. The Steiners and the Nasty Boys would have some better matches years later on Monday Nitros. But you can totally skip this, like I said. And then if you want to talk about matches to skip, you can skip the 3-minute match between the Junkyard Dog and Moondog Rex. Wow. Doom is back. And now they're managed by Teddy Long, and they wrestle Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. Yep. This is actually a good match, but it ends in a double countout, and after nearly 20 minutes long, to end in a double countout is horrible, and it kills the whole match.
Definitely.
But it's not as bad as the next two matches, because we get, for the NWA United States Championship, Stan Hansen defeats Lex Luger to win the title, and this is a 10-minute match that is just horrible.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Now, we talked about Lex Luger having opponents that can help him get a good match in there, and I'm not bad-mouthing Stan Hansen completely, because I actually just seen this week, and I sent you this as well, and it was actually a watch-along on Cornette's podcast recently. Andre the Giant had a match with Stan Hansen in Japan. It is actually the best match I've ever seen Andre have, and it's actually really good. Stan Hansen also was a part in '91 at Wrestle War in a match with Vader that I absolutely love. So it's not that I hate Hansen; it's just
I think at this point, at this point in Stan Hansen's career, he just stopped caring. You know,
well, again, 91 though. I liked his match with Vader in 91.
Well, yeah, but you know, but again, you have to remember that okay, Vader.
This is a year after Stan Hansen appeared in No Holds Barred, by the way.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that Hansen. It's like when it came down to certain people, he would give a good match. Other people, he just didn't care. Obviously, with
by the way, here's a Stan Hansen thing for you. In No Holds Barred, he's known for the famous, "Look at what we got here, a teeny wiener." The whole deal. How would Stan even know? He couldn't see.
I don't know. He must have 20/20 vision or something.
It's just so funny. Then we go to the main event, and oh my God, we got Sting defending the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, which he had won earlier in the year at the Great American Bash against Ric Flair in that tremendous match. And he's defending against Sid Vicious. The promo for this with Elvira is great, and Sid, that's when Sid looked the best, was in that promo. But this match had the dumbest booking ever. Yep. And this is actually the first time that Halloween Havoc would be known for these dumb things that they did, because in the main event, Sting goes to the back with Sid. Sid comes back to the ring and wins the match. But Sting looks a lot different for some reason. He's a lot taller. Yep. And just nothing looks right. And after Sid wins, they actually shot off fireworks and balloons started dropping from the ceiling to celebrate the heel Sid winning the title, which in itself is what the world are they doing? And then Sting comes back from the back, and we learn that the guy in the ring was actually Barry Windham, who traded places with Sting, and Sid attacked Sting in the back, and then, this makes no sense. And then Sting gets back in the ring, hits the Stinger Splash, and wins the match. Yes, he won the match with a Stinger Splash, for God's sakes. And then Sting does an interview with...
Not the Scorpion Deathlock, the Stinger Splash.
And then Sting does an interview with Jim Ross about the upcoming Starrcade match with the Black Scorpion. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Everybody badmouths Halloween Havoc. This show was the start of that. skip it at all costs. And let's move on. Halloween Havoc 1991. And oh boy, we start off bad, but we do end good. We start off with the worst match in Halloween Havoc history. The Chamber of Horrors match. Let's explain a little bit on this, that this match makes no sense. They reused the Thunderdome cage from 89, but now they've added a new feature. There's an electric chair because they don't want that electric cage. Now we need an electric chair.
Yeah.
And the object of this match is to throw somebody from the match into the electric chair and throw the switch and fry them. Now, this match features the craziest teams.
Hold on. It's not just throw them in the chair. You got to strap them down, put the headpiece on, and then electric.
This match has a lot of big name talent, but what the heck is with the way that they are put together? We have Elegante teaming with Sting and the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott, against Abdullah the Butcher, the Diamond Stud, a.k.a. Scott Hall, Cactus Jack, and Big Van Vader. There were other guys that were scheduled to be in this match earlier in the night. In fact, we saw Barry Windham get attacked and make it so that he had to be rushed to the hospital, and he gets out of the match. And I think that that's actually the best thing for him to get out of there. But yeah, originally Oz was supposed to be in this match, aka Kevin Nash. So it would have been interesting because the Diamond Stud's on that team. So it would have been the first time we saw Kevin Nash and Scott Hall team up. But the one-man gang was supposed to be in that match. Wasn't. Abdullah the Butcher replaced the one-man gang. Imagine if it was one-man gang in the chair, not Abdullah. But Vader replaced Barry Windham, and Cactus Jack replaced Kevin Nash Oz. So, yeah, that's what happened there. So this match takes place, and a masked man jumps out of nowhere and starts attacking them. Now, the funny thing on this, and this is not, to my knowledge, talked about anywhere. I've never heard anybody talk about this. But if you pay close attention to the guy in the mask, it's Terry Funk.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
So to me, Terry Funk remembered that Thunderdome cage from 89 and said, I'm in that again. They said no. I don't know what happened there. But so, yeah, that's what happened there, and it's crazy. And then we have the Chamber of Horrors begins, and during the match, they tried to put different people in the chair, and we get several shots of the cage where the switch is, and the switch is constantly in the on position because the on position is down, and for whatever reason, the thing keeps falling down, and the chair does not go off. So it's really stupid. In fact, they actually get Rick Steiner in this, and Cactus Jack climbs up to pull it and actually has to pick it up before put it off before he can turn it back on. It looks so bad. And then they miss their cue, and Cactus is looking over his shoulder and seeing that they're not ready for him yet, so he just kind of is stalling and standing on the cage like an idiot. Everything about this match is bad.
Yeah,
and
I agree wholeheartedly. I agree. I mean, just watching watching Cactus Jack just waiting. I mean, everything is just it's out of place. It was like something.
You're wasting all this talent, like Sting and Vader. Just why are you doing this? And it's the opening match.
Yeah.
Now, back in the day, for those of you who are too young to remember, pay-per-views, you used to be able to do a preview. And if you bought the pay-per-view, you had 15 minutes to be able to cancel the order, and they would cancel it. This match was the first 15 minutes of the show. I can only imagine how many people bought this pay-per-view, saw this garbage, called their cable company, cancel this crap, and got it off the air. Oh, God. And then we go from crap to more crap as we got Big Josh and PN News in a tag team match against the Creatures, Creature 1 and Creature 2. Oh, my God, this match has Jim Herd written all over it. Everybody badmouths Dusty's booking. This was right when Dusty was there, But and oh my god, what why? Oh, Bobby Eaton defeats Terrence Taylor, aka Terry Taylor was now a bad guy, so now he's Terrence Taylor. He's with Alexandra York, who many of you will know as Terry Runnels, aka Marlena, of the York Foundation. Terry Taylor as the York Foundation to me was not terrible. He actually had a pretty good match earlier in the year at Wrestle War as Terrence. He's a great wrestler, Terry Taylor, and I thought the Terrence Taylor character was actually a nice change of pace because when he came back as Terry Taylor, everybody was still calling him Red Rooster.
Yep.
And I thought that this was a nice little change. But what killed it was when they threw Ricky Morton with them and called him Richard Morton. It just killed the whole gimmick of the York Foundation.
Yeah, definitely.
And this match is way too long, by the way.
Yeah.
Johnny B. Bad.
A lot of these matches, they're way too long. As it is, you know?
Yes, and a lot of them wouldn't be so bad if they would cut it down. But we are going to be getting to. I told you the show starts bad, but it does get good. We're going to get some good in there. I guarantee you. Trust me. We get Johnny B. Bad with Teddy Long against Jimmy Garvin with Michael Hayes. This is not the good I'm talking about. No. But no, this is not a terrible match. As Johnny B. Bad actually was really good. Johnny B. Bad, known as Mark Merrow in the WWE, he was actually really good. It's just that his character was horrible, but this wasn't a terrible match, but it wasn't that great. But we go from this to the best match of the night. It ends in a time limit draw, so a lot of people don't like it because people did not like those time limit draws. But I actually thought that as long as it's a good match, I don't care. Stunning Steve Austin with Lady Blossom, his wife at the time, versus Dustin Rhodes for the World Television Championship. This match, like I said, best match of the card. Every time these two got in the ring together in WCW, it was always going to be a good night. And then for whatever reason, they just could not rekindle that in WWE. Whenever I saw Steve Austin versus Goldust, I cringed. They could not put on a good match. What happened?
You have to remember it was with Dustin, the fact that he was Goldust, he couldn't use the same move set that he was, that when he was in WCW. So
it's sad.
It's really
but
sad.
This match is great, and it's definitely the highlight of the show and the reason to watch the show by far. Oz, again, never explained why he's not in that opening match, because he is on this show as he wrestles Bill Kazmaier. And Bill Kazmaier, we all know as the strongest man in the world, versus Oz in a 4-minute match. Yep. Yeah, this needed to be on the show. But speaking of matches that don't need to be on the show, Doug Summers. I am going to praise Doug Summers for 1 second. Doug Summers was part of an amazing tag team in the AWA with Buddy Rose, Playboy Buddy Rose. And they went on to have one of my favorite matches of the Rockers when they fought the Midnight Rockers at the Wrestle Rock Rumble in 1986.
I still remember the rap to that.
Everybody does, because it was a ripoff of the Super Bowl Shuffle.
Yep.
But that match was great, and then they had a couple other good matches with the Midnight Rockers as well. So Doug Summers can wrestle. But for whatever reason, on this show, they subjected us to a 1-minute match, if you call it that, of Doug Summers versus Van Hammer, which saw Van Hammer almost kill Doug Summers, dropping him on his head.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if that's why they had the short match or not, but
I mean, I'm gonna say like this: I did not like Van Hammer. He was not a great wrestler. He was not a great,
and he was there for like 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that he would learn something and actually put a great match, but.
He even joined the Misfits in Action, by the way.
Yeah, I remember that.
A lot of people don't remember him being in that, but he was.
It was just. I mean, I think they were trying to see if they put him against Doug Summers, if it could be a great match, but obviously no. It's like you said, only lasted a minute. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was because Doug Summers actually legitimately got hurt. They had to
Well,
call it
it
they had to
wouldn't be
call an
the only
audible.
1 minute match on the show. We'll get to that in a minute. Um, but we then go on to, I just mentioned about Richard Morton being out of place with the York Foundation.
Hmm.
Well, Richard Morton, well, this match actually has some significance.
Hmm.
It's the first ever WCW Light Heavyweight Championship match. Richard Morton is defeated by Flying Brian Pillman. Pillman would go on to make that title mean a lot in 1992,
Hmm.
having matches with Scotty Flamingo, aka Raven, having matches with Jushin Thunder Liger at Super Brawl 2 and everything.
Hmm.
It's just Brian Pillman made that title mean something, and then they took it away from him, and it went away.
Yep.
But this was where he won it, and it was actually a decent match because Ricky Morton is a great worker. Let's face it.
Oh yeah.
I hated this gimmick, but he's a great worker. Put him with Flying Brian Pillman.
I mean,
It's awesome.
even to this day, in his old age, he's still a great worker. But especially right there within his prime, and with a young guy like Brian Pillman, oh my gosh, man, it was just it was a great
Yeah,
match.
this is another highlight and another reason to watch this. Um, Going into this event, they had been promoting a Halloween Phantom was coming.
Yep.
Ask Jim Hurd if you want to know why, because who knows. But Paulie Dangerously
Jim
even
Hurd
kept
and his
saying that he's
ideas.
bringing the Halloween Phantom to this show, and that he's going to be revealed at the show.
Hmm.
Halloween Phantom shows up to wrestle my buddy, who I just mentioned in the last show, Tom Zink.
Yep.
It's not a good match, but it's literally a minute long, and all through this, you could tell exactly who this was. You could see his chest hair coming out. You could see his you could see everything about him.
Hmm.
Even the mannerisms. Anyone with a rude awakening. If anybody did not know who it was, then they were living under a rock.
Hmm.
And then Paulie Dangerously comes out, and he's with Missy Hyatt. They all come out, and Medusa's out there, and he unmasks, and it is in fact ravishing Rick Rude. Oh my god, it's amazing! I never knew it was Rick Rude. So Rick Rude is here from the WWE. He's gone now, and now he's here in WCW. He would go on to have a tremendous run, having matches in 1992 with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat,
Hmm.
including an all-time classic at Beach Blast 92, the Iron Man match. We'll cover those eventually, but yeah, this was not a good thing, not a good way to bring him in. It was
No.
horrible. And then we go from that to a terrible tag team match with the Enforcers, Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko,
Yeah.
versus the Patriots, Todd Champion and Firebreaker Chip. Why this match is so late in the card, I have no idea, and it's just horrible.
Yeah.
But then we go to the main event, which to me is totally underrated. A lot of people, they rip on this match. I think it was really good. We're back to my buddy Lex Luger, who now is managed by Harley Race, and he's a heel, and he's the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, and he defeats Dusty Rhodes' protege, Ron Simmons.
And a 2 out of 3 falls, man. A 2 out of 3 falls match.
Yeah.
Was,
Ron Simmons, Dusty really pushed to try and make him the world champion,
mhm.
and the company was not for it. Eventually, a year later, Bill Watts would demand it, and it happened. But man, Ron Simmons, again, we talked about he was with Doom, and on here he's in this main event with Luger, and he looked on par in the main event as this is the champion. And the fact they didn't win was just it's horrible. He should have won the match and won the title here. This would have been really good.
No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, other than the historical value of being, the first black champion and all that, but I mean, he was just a great worker all around. He was I mean, a lot of people, they only know him because when he shows up every now and then, he says, "Damn." But he was great on the mic. The guy, the man was great on the mic. He was great on promos. He was great in the ring. I mean, he had a great physique. I mean, this guy was, he is what Luger should have been, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
He is
absolutely. Ron Simmons, the All-American, that was his gimmick. Even he's just so good.
Mm-hmm.
But we're moving on to 1992, and this is where we said the spin the wheel, make the deal was born during a horrible vignette where Jake Roberts and Sting would shoot lasers out of each other's eyes at each other and blow each other up in the vignette leading up to this match. Jake's debut here was tremendous. He left the WWE early in 92. Had basically his final match was at WrestleMania 8. It wasn't his final match, but it was the one that everybody remembers as his final match with The Undertaker. Rumors is that Jake was actually supposed to defeat The Undertaker, which means there never would have been a streak. There's a freaking what if. But Jake told Vince he was leaving because his father, Grizzly Adams, had been booking for WCW, offered him a major contract deal, and Jake took it. And Vince, out of retaliation, went and had Jake lose to The Undertaker, and the streak could continue. But Grizzly Smith, during the time that Jake was finishing up his dates with WWE, Grizzly Smith was fired by WCW, and they brought in Bill Watts. Bill Watts never liked Jake, saw the amount of money that they were offering him, and said no way, and cut the pay down so low that it was like half of what Jake was making in WWE. Jake was not happy. But he still made his debut as planned at the Clash of the Champions, where he was not announced, and he just came from the crowd. Jim Ross on commentary made this out to be the biggest thing ever. That's Jake Roberts. Jake Roberts doesn't even wrestle here. It was so good that you just couldn't help but get into it. And then he DDT Sting onto a steel chair and is about to throw the snake on him when the entire WCW babyface locker room clears out and is like, get out of this promotion. What are you doing here? This felt like an invading thing, and it was really cool. Then they ruined it.
It was the invasion angle before the invasion angle.
Yes, and just like the invasion angle, they ruined it. Yep. They booked the spin the wheel, make the deal, meaning that they're going to spin a roulette wheel to make the decision of what this match type is going to be. Why not just have a match? Why do we need a stipulation on it? Exactly. And then furthermore, they didn't rig it. It was legit. So they spin the wheel and it lands on Coal Miner's glove, which is the most boring match ever. They do these matches all the time, like the Silver Dollar match. Matches similar to this, where you got a pole, climb it to get a weapon. I never got these. ECW did their stairway matches where you climb a ladder to get barbed wire. I just don't get it. You got a ladder. What do you need the freaking barbed wire for? Just use the ladder as a weapon. Exactly.
It's like
it's horrible. So they have this Coal Miner's glove match, and Jake. Well, we'll get to that actually. Well, we're not at the main event yet. But yeah, so this show opens up with Tom Zink and Johnny Gunn and Shane Douglas versus Arn Anderson, Michael Hayes, and Bobby Eaton. The only thing to note here, this is during a time when WCW actually had a 6-man tag team title. Yep. And they would do 6-man tag matches all the time. This was not even one of those title matches, but that's the reason why they had so many 6-man tag matches during this time frame. Then we go to the match.
And this was even before anybody knew that Mexico has been doing it for years.
Yep, absolutely. There are some tremendous matches on this show, and this is one of them. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Flying Brian Pillman.
Oh, yeah.
If you have never seen this match, and it's not long enough. We talked about all these matches that are too long. Yep. This one's not long enough. They needed more time. They're just doing so many great things, but they're trying to rush everything in the 10-minute span. If this had gotten some proper time to it, it could have been even better than it was. This had potential to be better than the Steamboat Savage match if it had the time with it.
I mean, this match was a wrestling clinic in itself. It was just,
in 10 minutes they put on a better match than the entire show. Yeah. Come on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was the if anything, it was the highlight of the whole pay-per-view.
Yeah, well, there was some good matches on this show. It like I said, it's the best match on the show, but there's another match that's really close second, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Mm-hmm. But first, we have a match that is just terrible. Big Van Vader defending the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship against Nikita Koloff. Mm-hmm. I love Nikita Koloff. I recently just found out that He was actually, WWE was trying to steal him away back in 1986.
Wow.
And their original plan for that cage match was not Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy, but was actually supposed to be Hulk Hogan versus Nikita Koloff.
Wow.
With Ivan Koloff in his corner, making his return to the company since he had defeated Bruno Sammartino before for the title.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, can you imagine if they had had the U.S. versus Russia with Hulk Hogan versus Nikita Koloff in that cage?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it would have.
But it didn't happen, and instead we get this horrible match with Big Van Vader and Nikita Koloff. Yep. Moving on, we go to a tag team match for the NWA and WCW tag team titles. This was when the company was starting to break away, and they had two separate titles because they were trying to wean away the NWA. Barry Windham teams with Dustin Rhodes to take on Steve Dr. Death Williams and Steve Austin. For those of you who get this reference, it's the battle of the two Steve Williams. This match, however, ends in a time limit draw. Austin seems to be doing these a lot, 2 years in a row. This one went for a half hour, and it didn't actually go to half hour, which was also a problem. The match was actually shorter than a half hour, and everybody was scratching their heads when they said the time limit was up because anybody would have watched knew better. But moving on to the match that I mentioned, which is the close second on this show. Rick Rude with Medusa defeats Masahiro Chono for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, with both Kensuke Sasaki and Harley Race as special guest referees. This match is a disqualification, though, however, so he does not actually win the title. And it is horrible only because of that finish, because Harley Race was moving away from Lex Luger here, and they were trying to push him with other people, and just everything about the finish of this ruins it, and that's why it's not the best match on the show, because Chono was actually a great worker. He doesn't get the credit he deserves, and a lot of people remember Chono for his short run with the NWO, which he had a good match with Chris Jericho at NWO sold out the match of the night that night. Second match of the night. The latter match was match of the night and that, but yeah, here, Chono and Rude, they could work. Rude, it's really sad because Rude's one of the greatest workers to never hold a world title, really. You know? And I feel like he was actually getting close to getting the title here, and it just didn't happen for him. So it's really sad.
Sorry about that. Keep talking, man.
Okay, I'm like, what is going on here? Are we being invaded? Then we move on to Ron Simmons defeating the Barbarian with Cactus Jack. This match is another match that's just, why is it on this show? Again, we just talked about how great Ron Simmons is, and at this point, he is the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Why is he defending against the Barbarian? No offense to the Barbarian, he's a great worker in the mid-cards, but he did not deserve to be in this match. I think had this match been Ron Simmons versus Cactus Jack, it would have been a much better match.
Oh, no, I agree.
And moving on to the main event, again, the Coal Miners Glove match, Sting versus Jake Roberts. Jake had this idea to finish the match by having a Cobra bite him, and he's incapacitated for Sting to get the victory. Problem is, the Snake did not understand the finish, apparently, and refused to bite Jake. So Jake could be seen visibly on camera smacking the daylights out of the head of this Cobra, and finally getting so frustrated that he just grabs the head, grabs at the top of its mouth, grabs the bottom of its mouth, wedges the mouth open, and shoves its teeth into his own neck. Jim Ross, give Jim Ross a freaking Oscar for trying to play this off like that's not what we're witnessing, even though we're seeing all of this. Jim Ross is just like, oh, look at that snake. It's trying to attack Jake. Jake's smacking in the head, Jim. How is it attacking Jake? It's the other way around.
And again, you gotta watch the original. And again, you gotta watch the original. My God, it's getting that poison in him. And I'm saying again, you gotta watch the original because I think on the network they edited it where you don't see.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, where you don't see.
Oh man, yeah, you got to see the original then if they edited it because no, you cannot see this edited.
well, look at the bright side. Look at the bright side. I think a couple years later, you know, they actually did have a snake when that would cooperate when they had the Cobra biting Savage in the arm.
No, it was actually before this.
Oh, it was before. So I mean, they couldn't find
That
the
was
right.
in 1991. This is
Oh, that's right.
1992. A
Oh, that's
year.
right. Yeah, you're
This
right.
was
Yeah,
1 year later.
yeah.
This
Something.
was 1 year later.
Yeah. Well.
And that actually was because Jake was also smacking that snake too, because he got mad because Savage wouldn't take the bite at first, thinking that Jake was going to poison him.
Yeah.
And he told Jake in the locker room, "Let the snake bite you first." So Jake actually had to let the snake bite him in the back in the locker room,
Yeah.
so Savage could see it was devenomized.
Yeah.
And then Jake was so mad that Savage made him do that he angered the snake really bad, and he enjoyed watching the snake bite him. But that's off topic as well.
Yeah.
That's
a different.
Moving on to 1993, Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal returns, and this is what I was mentioning, that it is done right for once. Yep. But we'll get to that when we get there. This show opens up with Ice Train. Man, I love the Ice Train. What's your take on Ice Train?
I don't know, man. My memory's so bad. It's been a while.
Ice Train was a big dude, and I love this guy. He was so good. But they teamed up with Charlie Norris, who I do not know who the heck that is. And they teamed up with the Shockmaster. We all know who he is. Yep. And they faced the Harlem Heat, Cole and Kane, or as you know the best now, Booker T and Stevie Ray, and the Equalizer, a.k.a. Dave Sullivan, the brother of Kevin Sullivan, kayfabe. And this match is another one of his six-man tag matches. And again, it's not any good. So we'll move on to one of the worst matches in Ricky Steamboat's career. I love Ricky Steamboat, my favorite wrestler of all time. This is 19 minutes that ends in a countout of Ricky Steamboat versus Paul Orndorff, who's way past his prime here. Yep. And it's just not good. What's your take? Any take?
The match was, what was it, like 18 minutes, right? So the match itself was like 17 minutes 30 seconds too long.
That's absolutely. But then we go to two tremendous matches in a row. Mm-hmm. The first, this match, go out of your way to find this match. Go on the network, watch Halloween Havoc 93. Mm-hmm. Lord Steven Regal versus Davey Boy Smith. It's a time limit draw, yes. It runs 15-minute time limit, but oh my God. These two, we talked about wrestling clinics. This was a wrestling clinic. Definitely. Anybody who didn't see the old days of Regal, go watch Regal in this. He's so good. And Davey is so good holding up with him. You've never seen Davey Boy Smith like this.
No.
Davey worked a great match with Brett in the Wembley Stadium, but here, Davey is doing everything from kip-ups. He's just so fast-paced. He looks like a cruiserweight in this match.
Yeah. I mean, this was a match. This was a match where, there were two different styles with Regal and Davey Boy Smith, but those two together, they created magic. They created something that was
like I said, Davey didn't use his normal style. He didn't use that powerhouse style.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just to see Davey do this. You know what I mean? It was just excellent all around. I was really shocked because as a kid, like you said, all I knew from Davey Boy Smith was that powerhouse style, and when I seen him doing the kip up.
Yeah, and earlier in the year when he was working with Vader, he was using the powerhouse style, which worked in those matches. Yeah. But that's why it was just like, wow, who is this guy now?
Exactly. I mean, and Steven
it was
Regal,
like new life for Davey Boy.
And Steven Regal himself, a lot of people, they really do not give him a lot of credit. But if you really watch all of his matches, I mean, this guy, he can work. He can put off a great clinic in any match if it was booked right. You know what I mean? And you got to listen to his shoot interviews that he's done with Stone Cold Steve Austin, where he talks about his history and how he got into the business and why he had so much pride in professional wrestling. This guy was just old school hardworking worker. And it's just it was really great to see both of these men just put on a great performance, put on a great match, just really, something to see that, I still remember to this day that it's just, I really have no words other than that it was just a great match all together. It's really hard to describe it.
Absolutely. And then we move on to I just mentioned earlier, every time these two are in the ring, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
We saw them in the ring at Halloween Havoc 1991,
Mm-hmm.
and now we get them here at Halloween Havoc 93. We saw them at Starrcade before. Every time they're in the ring, except in WWE, they're horrible. Dustin Rhodes and Steve Austin for the U.S. title. This is a great match to see. The other one was good, but the finish, like I said, was a little hokey there with the time limit. This is just, we get a finish. Dustin Rhodes defeats Austin. It's great. He keeps the belt, but great match.
Definitely.
That's really all to say about it. Then we go to Marcus Alexander Bagwell with Too Cold Scorpio versus the Nasty Boys. The Nasty Boys, for whatever reason, are managed by Missy Hyatt in this. I gotta be honest, I don't remember this match whatsoever, and that can't be good.
Yeah, I forgot Missy Hyatt was in it.
I don't remember this match whatsoever. I can't remember anything about this match. So
no, I'm the same way. I didn't even remember that Missy Hyatt was managing the Nasty Boys. So I'm like, okay.
Speaking of matches, I don't remember Sid Vicious and Sting.
Yep.
I remember the 1991. I don't remember this one at all. So maybe the Barry Windham horrible finish was actually not that bad because at least it made the match memorable.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about this. Do you?
No, not really, not at all. I mean, it was just.
Then we'll move on to another great match.
While you're talking about this great match, I'll be right back.
Rick Rude versus Ric Flair. Now, this is where Rick Rude was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and Ric Flair is the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. And the belts are separate. Ric Flair had just made his return from the World Wrestling Federation earlier in the year, and now he is trying to get the belts away from Rick Rude. They're no longer the NWA title because of the fact that the NWA is no longer an affiliate, so now the NWA belt has now been renamed the WCW International World Heavyweight Championship. Flair and Rude go at it for nearly 20 minutes, and this is just a great match. Like I said, Rick Rude, one of the best guys to never hold the title, and here in this match, him and Flair, they hold their own. This is a classic wrestling match that you have to see. And then we go from a classic match to the main event, which is no longer, this is a classic in a whole nother sense of the world. And it's in our spin the wheel, make the deal match. But this time they rigged that wheel. They learned their mistake from 92 and decided to fix it. The wheel is spun, and it lands on a Texas death match. You can't go wrong here. Texas death matches are always great because you know that means the rules are thrown out the window and it's just going to be a brawl. And you can't have a better brawl than having Big Van Vader with Harley Race in his corner against Cactus Jack. These two, every time they were in the ring, somebody was going to get hurt. For the enjoyment of the audience. In the match in Germany, we know Cactus had his ear ripped off. Here, these two just go at it, and it almost got them thrown off pay-per-view because this match was not kid-friendly. They go everywhere and just beat each other up badly, and it's very entertaining to watch. That's really all to say about it, but like I said, the spin the wheel, make the deal was finally done right. It was also a 2 out of 3 falls match. So, but in the sense where not really, it was more like the style that Randy Savage and Crush had at WrestleMania 10, where you would get a fall and then the guy had to the count of 10 to get back to his feet, or else he was gone. So it was really interesting deal, to say to speak. And then Harley Race, he grabs a stun gun and uses it on Cactus Jack, which allowed Vader to finally get that victory because of the stun gun being involved. So just the fact that they would even do a crazy spot like that Yeah, this was good. It's a great brawl, and I recommend it.
I agree with that.
Moving on, we are in a whole new era of WCW
Yep.
in 1994 as we are getting Rage in the Cage, or as Jim Cornette would dub it the next night, Age in the Cage, as Hulk Hogan would battle Ric Flair inside of a steel cage. Hulk Hogan joined WCW earlier in the year in 1994. He would have his first match with Ric Flair at the Bash at the Beach, where he would win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. This show is also well known for a couple of reasons. One of those reasons being that it's the one and only appearance of the Honky Tonk Man in WCW as he battled Johnny B. Bad to a time limit draw in the opening match. Honky apparently got himself in some hot water with the company, though, and got fired shortly after this match. So, if you want to see the Honky Tonk Man in WCW, you're going to have to watch this horrible match that he had here to see it. We're moving on to Marcus Bagwell and the Patriot, Del Wilkes, as they took on Paul Orndorff and Paul Roma. Pretty wonderful. This is another tag team match for the WCW World Tag Team Championships, and it's not a good match. We then go on. Dave Sullivan, what we mentioned earlier, battles his brother, kayfabe Kevin Sullivan, and he wins by a countout. This is a 5-minute match, and it's not good.
Now, wasn't this the time when Dave Sullivan had an ally with Hulk Hogan, and he was wearing like Hulk's boots and yellow tights and all that?
I'm not sure if this was that time. I know this is when Dave had the bunny rabbit because he brought the bunny rabbit with him to the ring.
Yeah, he would also have the bathrobe. He would have like a bathrobe.
So yeah, I don't remember if this was during the Hogan one or not. I wondered where he went, by the way. You didn't coin in on that Honky Tonk Man deal or on the Cactus Jack Invader. So
no, I was listening in on that one.
Anyway, going on, Dustin Rhodes versus Arn Anderson. This match actually could have been good, but Robert Parker and Ming were both at ringside with Arn Anderson, and they just keep getting involved. And it wasn't good. I like Dustin Rhodes in WCW. This was not a good match.
I mean, here's the thing with that is that Arn Anderson is a great worker. Dustin Rhodes is a great worker. He didn't need Colonel Parker and Meng with him. He could have, they both could have worked a really good match. And Arn Anderson, as a heel, he was just a great heel, and he could have done something, even though he lost that match, but he could have done a lot. He didn't need Parker or Meng with him, and I was just, I was really disappointed. I was really disappointed that they would allow that. Now that I'm older, when I was a kid, I was still disappointed that, because as a fan, right, as a kid, I was a fan of Arn Anderson if he was by himself or in a tag team, but it was just, it was just stupid, that they would have Colonel Parker and Meng to be with him, because like you said, they just got involved. They did too much. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It gets to a point where it's just like, okay, come on, really? I get so sick of all this outside interference stuff,
Definitely.
The next match, we actually get a 2-1 basically, because they actually re-showed an entire match, which was only 35 seconds, granted. To recap this, Fall Brawl 94, Steve Austin is scheduled to face Ricky Steamboat with the U.S. title on the line. Now, here's the bad booking decision WCW makes. Steamboat was injured in the match with Steve at Clash of Champions shortly before the Fall Brawl. So the match at Fall Brawl, they announced at Fall Brawl, is not going to happen. And they are going to replace Steamboat with Duggan. Now, I don't know if this is confirmed, so I'm not giving this as like, this is set in stone. But from what I heard, the plan was supposed to be that Steamboat was to defeat Austin for the title at Fall Brawl. Because they had to replace him at the last minute with the debuting Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the decision was made, well, since Steve's supposed to lose the belt, he's going to lose it to Duggan. I don't know if that's the case, but in 35 seconds, and the whole match is re-shown here, Duggan defeats Austin and wins the title. The rematch is then booked for Halloween Havoc, and Duggan wins again. Oh, man. If anybody doesn't see they were burying Steve Austin in 94, this is it right here, man. Jim Duggan beating Austin, and after these horrible matches, the two did not mesh well in the ring, and you could tell during this match, it's a disqualification, but he still wins, and you could just see visibly on Steve's face that he just was getting so fed up with the booking at this point.
I mean, don't get me wrong. As a kid, I was a fan of Jim Duggan, and but I just can't. I couldn't see him as a champion. He wasn't. He wasn't. He was a mid carder, at best he was a mid carder, but even to have a mid card title, mid card.
But here's the thing with that, and this was Hogan's idea, definitely. Because remember, this is when Hogan was booking pretty much the whole book. Yep. Duggan is Mr. USA. So to make Duggan the U.S. champion does make sense in that sense.
I guess, but it's just
having him chant USA, and he's got the U.S. title, so that's where it makes sense. Had it been the television championship, no, but the U.S. title made sense.
Yeah,
moving on.
I can see it, but okay.
Vader, once again with Harley Race, defeats the Guardian Angel. For those of you who don't remember, the Guardian Angel was Ray Traylor, the Big Boss Man. Now, here's a story most of you probably don't remember. When he made his return to WCW in 1994, they nearly got sued by the World Wrestling Federation because he came in as the boss, wearing a cop outfit, just altered colors. It was a black cop outfit as opposed to the blue one he wore in WWE, but he played the whole character of the Big Boss Man, and they called him the Boss. WWE sent a cease and desist, and he was changed over to the Guardian Angel, and that didn't last long before he would shortly go back to his original name from WCW, Big Bubba Rogers.
I mean, they actually did a whole storyline where he joined the Guardian Angels, which it was or still is an organization that started in New York and what have you. But it was like they had the founder of the Guardian Angels, just really to add validity to the character of the Guardian Angel. He came out wearing the red jacket and the red hat, whatever, beret or whatever, and I'm like, it's like, it was cool, I guess, as a kid. For me, it was like cool, but at the same time, it was just like,
yeah, it wasn't necessary.
Yeah, it wasn't necessary. It was just,
at Fall Brawl,
I was happy when
Fall Brawl, the War Games, the War Games at Fall Brawl saw the Bunkhouse Buck, Bunkhouse Buck, and all these guys involved in the War Games against the Nasty Boys, Dusty Rhodes, and Dustin Rhodes. It's not a good War Games. It's best known for Colonel Parker wearing all white and crapping his pants because Dusty hit him so hard in the chest. But they decided to keep this feud going for whatever reason, and here in this in this semi-main event, we've got Terry Funk and Bunkhouse Buck versus the Nasty Boys. This is not a good match.
Nope, not at all.
Apparently you agree.
I agree. I definitely agree.
But we go from that match. That's not the worst match on the card. The worst match on the card comes next.
Yep.
Again, it's known here. WCW played it off and promoted it as Rage in the Cage. Jim Cornette, the next night on Cornette's Corner on Monday Night Raw, would talk about this match and call it Age in the Cage, as Hulk Hogan defends the WCW World Heavyweight Championship inside of a steel cage against Nature Boy Ric Flair. Hogan has Jimmy Hart in his corner. Flair has Sherry Martel in his corner. And to top it off, the special guest referee for this match is Mr. T.
Yeah.
This is not a good match at all. The Bash at the Beach match was short and sweet and to the point, and it was not a bad match. This match is just a dragged on match. It was also, by the way, dubbed a career versus career match. Mm-hmm. So after Hogan won, Flair had to retire because, as you all know, we never got to see Ric Flair ever wrestle a match again after this. It's so sad that it was Ric Flair's last match.
Yeah. I can't believe it.
Because he would not go on to have another, this was 94, so he would not go on to have another 14 years of wrestling in any major promotion. And then after that retirement, go on to have any more matches.
Yeah, I mean, it's so terrible. It is terrible that we weren't able to see Ric Flair wrestle ever again after this.
And by the way, if you're wondering where he's staying on this show, well, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
During this match, Sherry Martel climbs the cage to hand the belt to Flair. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Hart rips her skirt off.
Yep.
Sting comes out and tries to help stop Sherry and was attacked by a masked man.
Yep.
Then Sherry got up the cage and helped Flair to handcuff Mr. T to the cage.
Yep.
Hogan wins the match with a leg drop.
Yep.
And then Hogan's attacked by a masked man. Mm-hmm. This masked man had been stalking Hogan for months. Hogan pulls the mask off him. Mm-hmm. And it's Ed Leslie, Brutus the Bar Beefcake, who's now known as Brother Brudai. Mm-hmm. And then, after the match, Hogan gets attacked by Brudai and by Kevin Sullivan and Avalanche, who we all knew as Earthquake in WWE, mm-hmm. John Tenta, shortly before he would become the Shark. Mm-hmm. And then Sting would make the save on this.
Yep.
This, of course, would be setting up the Starrcade main event, the worst Starrcade main event in history of Ed Leslie, Brudai versus Hulk Hogan, and we're not going to talk about it. Yeah. Instead, we're going to go to the worst of another worst one, Halloween Havoc 1995. Yeah. And I got a story on this.
Go right ahead.
I know this show so well because I can't lie about it. It's the way it went down. I was 11 years old. Give me some slack. I could not wait to see this show. Yep. I was so sold on all of it. They had these promos that were done where you would hear about how the man becomes the monster when the two men go into these monster trucks for a sumo monster truck match on the roof. Yep. Then the monster becomes the man as the two men square off in the ring for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. It's WCW's Halloween Havoc. I was so sold.
Oh, yeah.
And I begged my dad for over at least 3 weeks to order this pay-per-view, and he kept saying, no, we can't afford it.
I did the same
And then
thing.
I bought a pack of WCW trading cards at the local card shop, which they're very rare to find those these days. Not the cards, but the card shops. Mm-hmm. Cards too, but I opened it up, and inside is a little coupon that if you order Fall Brawl 95, Halloween Havoc 95, or World War III 95, and send this coupon in with a copy of your cable bill proving that you ordered it, you will get $5 off the pay-per-view. So I showed this to my dad and said, look, we could get $5 off the pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. And so finally he did. He ordered the pay-per-view. We sent it in, which, by the way, to follow up on that, we got a check in the mail signed by Ted Turner that said Ted Turner's petty cash account to give us that $5 back. Wow. I thought that was so cool. I kept a copy of that check for the longest time, but now it's since been lost, and it's upsetting. This show, by the way, a lot of people don't know, but it started very early, and there were 4 dark matches that aired on television on the pay-per-view.
Yep.
If you ordered it, the countdown came on early, and you got 4 matches on there.
I mean,
And they were
WCW was
not
doing
good
pre-shows
matches.
before WWE was.
Yeah, long before. The best match on that pre-show, and it's really short, however, was Eddie Guerrero versus the Disco Inferno, but it was over in like 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Orndorff defeated the Renegade in like a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And Benoit and Malenko actually fought the Blue Bloods, Lord Steven Regal and Earl Robert Eaton. I can't remember anything about this match. And Craig Pittman had fought VK Wall Street. And again, the only reason I've mentioned these dark matches is because they actually did air on television.
Mm-hmm.
So we go on to the opening match of the pay-per-view. It's Johnny B. Bad versus Diamond Dallas Page. These two would have other matches as well, particularly one that came at World War III the month after, and that was a better match. But this was also a decent match. The only problem with this match was that it was when DDP was coming out with not only the Diamond Doll Kimberly, but he also came out with Max Muscle. And Max actually like gets involved in this match quite a bit, and it's not needed. By the way, this show was just reviewed recently by Brian Zane, who was a lot more harsh than I'm going to be with it. Yeah. But it is a bad show. Randy Savage, who was injured legitimately during this whole thing, and then I'll never forget World War III when his injury finally went away, and Gene Okerlund asked him at that show, how are you feeling, Randy? Are you really feeling like you're at 100%? He goes, I am at 1,000,000%. That is better than 100%. Yeah. And then he's like, 1,000,000%? Well, 1,000,000%. But anyway, so Savage is in this feud with Lex Luger, who had just come back in September from the WWF, jumped ship on the very first Nitro, and then Vader left the company right before Fall Brawl, so Luger took his spot in the War Games. WWE edits this out of the network and the DVD of the War Games, but in the commentary, because Savage and Luger start battling each other because they're on the same team, and then Sting's trying to bring it up, and there's commentary that's cut for some reason where you hear, and look at it, we got a fight with Luger and Savage, and look at Sting, he's trying to bring it up. For some reason, that commentary's cut. I don't know why. But so the two of them were not getting along, and then the Dungeon of Doom came about after Hulk Hogan and the Giant had made his debut, Paul White, known now as Big Show, and they tried to play it off that he was the son of Andre the Giant. And at Fall Brawl, when the War Games went on, Team Hogan versus the Dungeon, and Team Hogan wins, and then Hogan had 5 minutes alone with Kevin Sullivan in the cage. The Giant came, opened the door, and got in and beat up Hogan, supposedly snapping his neck, having him in a neck brace for a while. Hulk Hogan would go to the dark side wearing black, and then get his mustache shaved by Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah, and then he would do the face paint like Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah, just on the top of his head.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring that up is because now Randy had been kind of saying, "Oh, I think Lex is part of the Dungeon of Doom, and he's not really with us." And Sting was going to bat for him, but Savage wanted a match with Lex, and for whatever reason, they get the match, but they're told only if they could each win a match before that. Why? I don't know. So Savage gets a match with the Zodiac. You just heard a year earlier, he came in as Brother Brudai. This dude had so many names. It had Leslie in WCW. Everything from the Booty Man to the Man with No Name to the Disciple.
Who?
They couldn't keep up with these gimmicks.
Remember when he was who?
What?
Remember when he was who?
No, he wasn't who. That was Jim Neidhart.
Oh, wow! I thought.
No, that's Jim the Anvil Neidhart. That's actually where my joke came from before. Okay. When I said who is Natty Neidhart's favorite wrestler.
Okay. All right, never mind. Go ahead.
So anyway, this match is a minute long. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
Savage couldn't do much because, like I said, he's got a legit arm injury here. How he even is working any match is beyond me. But yeah, it's pointless. And then we go to a 3-minute pointless match. Kurosawa, who WCW was really trying to push this guy. They had him beat Road Warrior Hawk. This was when Animal was AWOL. Because Hawk had gone and the early 90s around this time. It was a couple of years before. He had gone to Japan and worked with Kensuke Sasaki, who was renamed the Power Warrior. And I actually just seen a match last night, which was tremendous, with the Power Warrior and Road Warrior Hawk versus Hulk Hogan and the Great Muta in Japan. But Hawk would then come back to WCW, and he was working with all his Japanese talent, trying to help these guys get over. And then he would even take part in the World War III Battle Royal as well, the 60-man Battle Royal, on his own. And then a couple months after that, Animal would return to WCW, and we got the final reuniting of the Road Warriors for the first time since 1992. So that was big. But anyway, moving on. Sabu versus JL, who would be known later on as as Jerry Lynn. Yep. Now, Brian Zane got this all wrong, and I tried to correct him even because he mentions how the cameras didn't do their job because they missed the Sheik throwing a fireball into the eyes of JL after the match. That actually was not supposed to happen. The Sheik had asked permission if he could throw a fireball and was told no, that it did not fit WCW's format at the time. And he did it anyway. And the controversy actually is what led to Sabu getting fired by WCW. And then Sabu would go on to be in ECW after that, as well as JL as well. So,
I mean, the thing is that the Sheik himself, the Sheik, you know, he was old school. He was old school, and it was like, you know, you couldn't tell him what to do. You know, I mean, that's how he trained his nephew Sabu, and it was just like.
He also trained Rob Van Dam.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Then we go to a match that we talked about just a minute ago, how short the Randy Savage match was. Well, Lex Luger now gets into a match with Meng, aka Haku. It's a disqualification match, and it's like 15 minutes long, and it's just way too long and dragged out. And why? I mean, I guess the reason is because they knew that Savage and Luger was going to have to be just as short because of Randy being injured, but just, you know, this is one of those times when you can pull the card subject to change the match and get Savage off the card, you know? Come on.
Exactly.
And then Ric Flair, earlier in 95, was having problems with the Horsemen and got into a feud with Arn Anderson and had a match against Arn Anderson at Fall Brawl, and this was a great match. And Brian Pillman jumped the guardrail and attacked Flair during the match and helped Arn Anderson win the match. And now Anderson's now with Brian Pillman, and the two of them just keep beating up Ric Flair every week on Nitro. Flair needs help, doesn't know who to turn to. He's burned so many bridges. He goes to Sting, begs Sting to join him. Sting constantly says, no, no, no. And finally, Flair's like, come on, Sting, I need you. And he goes, all right, fine. I will team with you, but if you flare me, that's all he had to say. If you flare me, that's a term right there that didn't catch on, but man, it should have. If you flare me in the slightest little bit, I'm going to leave you for dead. Dead. A week earlier on Nitro, they have a match. Flair as Brian Pillman and Arn Anderson get voted by the fans to face against Flair and Sting. Sting does not go to the ring. Flair goes to the match alone and is wrestling the whole match. Sting is finally convinced. He comes out halfway through the match and joins Flair, and the two of them have a great match. Here at the pay-per-view, we learned that Ric Flair had been attacked earlier in the day by Brian Pillman and Arn Anderson and is not at ringside. Sting comes out alone, and Sting basically, this is a handicap match. The whole match is Sting, and he is just, at first he's on fire, and then he's just getting beaten down. The numbers game is not good on him. Pillman and Anderson are destroying him, but this is probably the only good handicap match I've ever seen in my life. And then Ric Flair finally comes out. He's got a bandage on his head. He's not dressed to wrestle, which Bobby Heenan makes sure to mention by going, Ric Flair's not dressed to wrestle. He's not dressed to wrestle. He's wearing like these alligator type shoes, like dress shoes, and he's wearing slacks. He's just not like, what's he doing out there? And then he's on the aprons cheering on Sting. Every time Sting gets close to the tag, somebody breaks it up, either by coming in the ring, breaking it up, or even at one point they go after Flair on the apron. So Flair jumps down to come after them. He's not there for Sting the tag. It's so brilliantly done. This is old school.
Definitely.
Sting finally gets the tag. He's exhausted after having this whole match for like 15 minutes by himself against two guys. Flair gets in the ring. Flair runs off the ropes, and he nails Sting. And it's just so great listening to Tony and Bobby on the commentary here, even when Ric Flair is in, and Flair, oh, what is he doing? And Bobby's like, he attacked Sting. It was a plan. It was set up. And now Sting, was already exhausted, is getting beat up by Flair, Pillman, and Anderson. And it's just so well done. Sting, by the way, is dressed in Halloween gear, wearing all orange paint and the orange tights. Love the look here on Sting. And everybody hates this match. And a lot of people go, oh, everybody knew that Sting was going to get turned on by Flair. It's so obvious. Sting must have been an idiot. First of all, it's the storyline that he did already know, and that's why he was reluctant and finally said, okay, but if you flare me, I'm going to get back at you. So he was reluctant. Next, I don't care if everybody in the arena knew. You know what? When you watch the Three Stooges, you know that those guys are going to keep getting hurt and everything, but you still watch because it's classic and you want to see it.
Exactly.
It becomes your favorite act.
Exactly.
That you want to see that.
I mean,
if you go see your favorite comedian,
yeah, I mean, everybody
don't you want to hear them do your favorite jokes?
Exactly. I mean, everybody knows Flair's gonna, you know, he's gonna betray somebody. He's gonna be.
If you go see your favorite band in concert, do you not want to hear them play your favorite songs?
Exactly. So it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, of course we know that, but we still want to see it, you know, and you still want to have that glimmer of hope that, like, okay, with wrestling, that Flair is gonna be, he's not gonna betray somebody, or or a glimmer of hope that that Sting is gonna see it ahead of time, and then he's gonna fight it off or whatever, and using concerts, right? It's like you still want to hear that song, that favorite song of yours. You want to be able, you want to have that hope, because it's just. But no, I don't know why people they talk so bad about it. It's like it was just you still want to see it.
It was very well done, like I said.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And then a month later, Sting would get his revenge, and this was back. I had mentioned it earlier too. How they did a fan vote in a match. Well, they were doing this all the time on Nitro. These fan voting matches, which were kind of like the precursor to WWE's Taboo Tuesday, and then eventually Cyber Sunday. But right before World War III, which was going to be Sting versus Flair, the fans voted a match of Sting versus Flair to happen on Nitro. And they gave away this match on Nitro, and Sting puts the Scorpion Deathlock on it. He's not letting go. And then Lex Luger comes out and talks him into letting go. And then in the promo that he cuts next about the pay-per-view, he says, well, I had Ric Flair in the sharpshooter, in the Scorpion Deathlock once, and I let go because a friend got in my ear. But if I get him in it again, I'll never let go. And you're thinking, oh, man, it's going to be good. And then at that pay-per-view, he puts him in it, Flair gives up, and Sting just lets go. And I'm like, what is this?
I know. I thought you
the
said you were
totally phoned in that performance.
Oh, yeah.
Neither guy, you could tell, cared to have the match, and it's just so bad. But that's a different pay-per-view. Then we go to the roof, or... At least they claim it's the roof, but it's actually the building next door, and it was taped the night before. But it's a sumo monster truck match, and this is only like 5 minutes, and it feels like 20. It's so long and stupid. Hulk Hogan's truck was built by the same guy who made Bigfoot, and he is there doing commentary, and he's horrible as well. Bob Chandler, I believe, was his name. I'm going by memory here. But... he ends up building this truck because the Giant had his own truck and he had run over Hulk Hogan's motorcycle and crushed it. Hogan wanted revenge, so he goes, I'm going to build a bigger and better monster truck. I'm going to tow it to him and I'm going to push him all over the building. And
all this truck was Hulk Hogan's face. It was Hulk Hogan's head and like his. No,
it wasn't even. This was Hulk Hogan's bandana and his arms coming out the sides.
Exactly. It was just like, what? The Giants truck. It looked way better. It looked way better. It was,
As an update to this, by the way, they would eventually paint that bandana to black and white for the
yeah,
Hollywood and
I
use it
remember.
again.
I
But
remember.
as a kid, I bought into this. Couldn't wait to see this. I had to go to bed. I had bedtime because I had school.
Hmm.
So this was actually where I tapped out for the night. And then the next morning, getting up early before school, even
Hmm.
just so I could watch the tape of this. And what did I witness? I witnessed this boring thing of Hulk Hogan looking like he's taking a dump in the truck.
Exactly.
Watch it back if you don't believe me.
I know.
It
I
looks
know
like two
exactly.
guys trying to take a massive dump.
Yeah.
It keeps cutting to Hogan grunting and pushing as hard as he can,
Yeah. Same
and
thing with the
Giant doing the same in his
exactly.
truck. It just looks like two guys trying to take a dump,
Yeah.
and this is
It's
what
like
we're watching.
yeah. I mean, they're going back and forth towards the camera, right? Going back and forth towards they're grunting and pushing, and it's
And
just like
every time they show the trucks, they're not showing us close-ups of it. It's all far back shots, like it's from a helicopter or
yeah,
above,
yeah.
and it's just so horrible. Everything about it is bad.
Oh
And then
yeah.
they're constantly too. This is also very annoying. They keep talking about these charges that are up there that will explode.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they there? I
Exactly.
don't understand why they have these explosive charges up there.
Exactly.
And they're like, they are getting close to those charges, and if that happens, they could blow up the whole building. And I'm like, then why would you have that there?
I mean, here's the thing: the
But
way
they
they
kept
build.
making a point of this during that. Oh my God, they are so close to those charges.
Yeah.
Because Eric Bischoff called this match with Bob Chandler, and
Yeah.
it's just like, oh my God, this is horrible.
I mean, here's the thing: when they were building up this match, I guess, right? When they were building it up, they were describing it as like, I mean, these monster trucks were gonna, they're gonna ram each other. They're gonna do, no, they,
Well, no. Hogan said he was going to tie a chain around the two trucks and drag him around the roof.
yeah,
They never announced it like this, ever.
no, I mean, in some of the, I mean, in some of the advertisements I saw, they're like the way they were describing it, but still, it's the fact, I mean, they both trucks, it was just, like,
It's just horrible.
yeah,
It's so bad. And then Hogan wins, and they get out, and then the Giant's like, you and me, we're going. And then they go to the roof, and then the Giant falls off the roof, and Hogan's like, no. And he tries to catch him. Can you imagine if Hogan had actually caught him anyway?
yeah.
He would have never been able to hold him. It would have pulled Hulk off, too. There was nothing to hold on to.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, even before Rey Mysterio was thrown off the roof at the
And
Money in the
Aleister Black.
Bank, it was the Giant.
And they're like, oh, no. Eric Bischoff on commentary, even with that. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah, I know.
He's like, no. And I'm just like, oh, Eric, shut up.
Yeah.
And then Hogan's like, oh, no. Help. And he's like running away from a whole crowd of people, like including the cameraman.
Yeah.
Oh, who are you running to, Hulk?
Exactly.
But then we go to the big match of Randy Savage and Lex Luger. This is 5 minutes long. Savage actually wins, and it's just terrible. But like I said, because Savage is injured. And then Hogan comes out, not dressed to wrestle. He's wearing regular clothes, but they're all black.
Mm-hmm.
And he's cutting the most insincere promo about what went down out there wasn't supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? You weren't supposed to throw him off a roof? Man, those advertisement posters really lied.
Exactly.
You know? See, Brian saying it's easy to actually make a joke when you actually know your material.
Yeah.
But so then he goes on with, man, I don't know what went on down there, but the last time I saw the Giant, man, and then you're thinking he's going to say something bad, like that he was a mangled mess.
Yeah.
And then instead, the Dungeon of Doom music hits, and out comes Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan with the Giant, and only ones even trying to sell it at this point is Tony and Bobby, because Tony's like, he's risen from the dead.
Yeah.
And you could tell though when he reads that line, even that he like doesn't want to say it. Like, oh God, this is so stupid. You could tell Tony and Bobby were like, all right, we've jumped the shark.
They phoned it in.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Instead of saying they jumped the shark or nuked the fridge, say they threw the Giant off the roof. But he walks out and they're like, look at him. He's scratch on him. Nice scratch on him, Tony. It's just like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
And they even said he either landed on the concrete or the water. And they're like, which one do you think he landed on? And then they're like, I mean, oh my God. Eric Bischoff actually says on commentary, oh, what difference does it make? A huge difference, Eric. If he lands in the water, there's actually a chance he can survive.
Exactly.
But no, they should have had him come in completely soaked, like with like some seaweed on himself. Mm-hmm. Instead, he's in his ring gear, so he actually had time to go to the back and change and all.
Exactly.
This, by the way, is Paul's first match ever.
Yep.
He never wrestled on the Indies, never wrestled a match anywhere. This is his first match.
I mean, this was like, once they took him out of the power plant, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And then he comes in and he just like does this thing. He's listening to Hogan, and you can see Hogan's telling him everything to do and just be a giant, man. And it's not a good match. No. And then the ending is even worse. Earlier in the week, we learned that the Dungeon of Doom was getting a new member, and they had this giant ice block.
Yep.
And then the ice block exploded, and out came the Yeti.
Yeah. But
he's not a Yeti. He's a giant mummy.
Yep.
Why? Why is a Yeti a giant mummy?
And it's not just the Yeti. It's the Yeti!
Yeah. And the Yeti! But, so, the Yeti comes out, and before that even, Hogan's like about to win, and all of a sudden the referee goes down, and again, commentary here is just gold. Tony Schiavone's like, the referee went down! What happened to the referee? And then he's like, did Jimmy Hart hit the referee? And then Hogan's even like, what happened to the referee? Yeah. And then he tells Jimmy, hold the referee up so he can count the count. And Jimmy's holding the referee up. And this is horrible. And then Hogan turns around, and then Tony takes over with commentary to tell you what happened. He pushed the referee down. Jimmy Hart just attacked Hulk Hogan. And then Luger comes out, and now Luger attacks Hogan. And it's just like, oh my God, what the heck is going on here? And then they're like, Jimmy Hart, Lex Luger, they both turned their back on a world champion. And then out comes the Yeti.
Yep.
And the Yeti and the Giant decide to each stand on one side of Hogan, one on the front of Hogan, one on the back, and they dry hump him.
Yep.
It's supposed to be like the ultimate bear hug.
No, they're dry
but
humping.
It just looks so bad.
I mean, it's like you see them kind of like moving side to side, back and forth. I mean, it was just, oh my God.
And then Luger lifts Hogan up in the torture rack, and at this point, we're all being tortured more than Hogan is.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And then I still don't understand this line that Bobby Heenan gives. Well, you better get an envelope to send Hogan home. Is he trying to say that like he's so flat that we could fit him in an envelope?
I guess that's what he was trying to say.
I never understood that. Well, you better get an envelope to send Hogan home.
It was just, that joke.
I don't know.
Yeah, that joke flew right over my head at that time, and it still does.
Dude, I actually had recorded tapes of these pay-per-views that I recorded on cassette.
Yeah.
And I would literally, like, when I would go on jobs with my dad doing, like, landscaping, I would listen to these tapes and just study the commentary and the promos over and over and over again. So the entire year of 95 is just so embedded in my head forever. Like, all those pay-per-views. I know all of them by heart, the commentary and all. It's just crazy. Yeah. Moving on to 96, we now are officially sponsored by Slim Jim. Snap into Slim Jim's WCW Halloween Havoc. And the main event is going to be Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. But before we get there, we open with one of the greatest matches in Halloween Havoc history that is totally underrated. People don't talk about it enough. Dean Malenko versus Rey Mysterio Jr. for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. They get 20-minute opening, and Dean Malenko wins the Cruiserweight Championship from Rey. Wow. This match is just so good. They've had so many good matches between these two. This, in my opinion, is the best one they had.
I got nothing to say. I agree.
All right. We go on to another great match, Diamond Dallas Page versus Eddie Guerrero. Another great match. Again, at this point, the Cruiserweight division is taking over. Diamond Dallas Page is not a Cruiserweight, of course, but Eddie Guerrero was. And the two of them, they had some great matches in 95 and 96, and this was one of them. Then we go from...
Mind you, with Diamond Dallas Page, he started wrestling later in his life, and...
Yeah, he was in his 40s.
Yeah, I mean, and this man, I mean, he put on some great matches, and what he did with Eddie Guerrero, with his style, with the Lucha Libre style, it was just tremendous. It was just,
this, by the way, is my favorite era for Eddie Guerrero.
Oh yeah.
We then go to a terrible match. This is when Jeff Jarrett was wearing this terrible outfit with like the it was like suspenders, but all across his body.
Yeah.
And it made no sense. And he wrestled the Giant. This is just a terrible match. But ironically, I used to recreate this match all the time on the WCW versus the World for PlayStation 1. Then we go to a great match between Syxx and Chris Jericho. Again, Sean Waltman, great worker. Chris Jericho, great worker. Put them together, get a great match.
Definitely.
It's simple logic here, people. But then we go to another terrible match, Lex Luger and Arn Anderson in a submission match. This is not good. And then we go even worse. This is when the Horsemen had brought in Steve McMichael.
Yep.
So Steve McMichael teams with Chris Benoit to face the Faces of Fear, Ming and the Barbarian.
Yeah.
This match could have been good, but they McMichaeled it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
That's a fair statement. We then go to another great match, the Outsiders versus the Harlem Heat for the WCW World Tag Team Championships, and the Outsiders win the titles. This was when the NWO is still very new. It's only October. They basically came together earlier in the year and then became the NWO with Hogan in July at the Bash at the Beach. They took the WCW World Heavyweight title in August at the Hog Wild pay-per-view, and now here they are taking the WCW tag team titles away. So yeah, the NWO, they were starting to take over. And then we get the horrible main event of Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage. The only thing memorable in this match is Hogan winning with the help of the Giant and then spray painting a yellow streak on his back, and I still don't get that even. And even Bischoff, a yellow streak down the back of Randy Savage. Is he trying to say like he's a stepping stone or a road? And then they decide they're going to just spray paint Liz like crazy because she's trying to save him. And Liz is wearing this gray dress, and like they keep spray painting NWO and all onto her and all. And then in a spot that's not even seen on camera, but you see it, the aftermath, Nash actually spray paints the curve lines around Liz's buttocks.
Yeah.
Because when you see her again, she has the curve lines down there.
Yeah.
So, what the heck? But this match is then known for them pulling a Nitro. At the end of Nitro, all the time, they would pull, "No fans, we're out of time, we gotta go." But this is pay-per-view. And they actually decide to do this again. They're about to go off the air. Bagpipes start playing. Tony is the biggest moron on the planet. What is that music? There's no other matches. It's bagpipes, Tony. We all know who it is.
Exactly. Mind you.
Out comes Roddy Piper. Huh?
No, I was just gonna say that. Mind you, also, to kind of add to it, right? Is that this was the first Halloween Havoc, all the way to 2000, that was held in Las Vegas, and
yes, that's true.
Yeah, so it was just I mean, what's the saying? If what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas and whatever and all that, but it was just like it's in Vegas. You're expecting something big, and okay, you hear bagpipes. You don't know who comes out the bagpipes. I don't know.
Yeah, and then Roddy Piper walks out, and Roddy Piper starts cutting this promo. He screws up and calls the Giant Sprout. I think he meant the Jolly Green Giant joke there, but you Sprout, I'll deal with you later. It's like, why is he calling him Sprout? And then he gives him this line about, you talk about you're the biggest man in Hollywood. I've done just as much in Hollywood as you. You know what you hate about me, Hogan? I'm the one guy you've never been able to beat. And then they start running out of time at this point, and Piper's like, I'm not finished yet. And Tony's like, I'm sorry, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night, Nitro. We're out of time. Goodbye. And he cut off right then and there with nothing. It's like, oh my God, wasted opportunity, can you say? But that's Halloween Havoc 96. Then we move on to Halloween Havoc 97, and you would think, based on the fact that the main event is Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan, based on how that just went on there, that this may be the first time. Oh no. We got that cow buried into that horse, beaten down as much as it could be. Starrcade 96, Hogan would wrestle Piper. It was actually a good match. I like it. Everybody hates it. The only thing I think is stupid is why doesn't Piper go for the title? Because he won the match and it wasn't a title match. And then they would have the match at the Super Brawl, aka the Alcatraz deal.
And we talked about that before.
Now we're going to a cage match here at this show, and if you thought the Flair and Hogan cage match was wrong, oh boy, wait till I get to this. We open up the show with Yugi Nagata with Sonny Ono defeating the Ultimo Dragon. Good match to start the show. Always love these cruiserweight matches. Chris Jericho wrestles Japanese wrestler known as, I can't pronounce his name, Gito or Gato. Not sure how that's pronounced, but decent match, nothing special there. And then we go to the match that everybody will forever say is the greatest match in the history of Halloween Havoc. I don't agree with that, but I do agree that it's the greatest match in the history of both these men's careers. It's title versus mask match, Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Eddie Guerrero. And if you've never seen this match, going back to it now, it's going to be hard for you only because you've seen so much from these guys. But if you can go back in the mindset that this is the first time we've seen a lot of this stuff, it's amazing. Particularly a point in the match where Ray goes up to the top, backflips into a reverse DDT onto Eddie Guerrero. It's just unheard of, you know? Ray hits a freaking plancha over the top into a Hurricane Rana onto Eddie Guerrero. It's just amazing. And Bobby Heenan, who was always critical of these cruiserweight matches, they would always bring in the Professor Mike Tenay for commentary on these things even, and Bobby would always kind of be making fun of him and all. Bobby Heenan even gets lost in this, like, oh man, look at this match. But I mean, you look at some of the other cruiserweight matches, like there was one against Psychosis where Bobby Heenan's like, he's got hair like Peg Bundy. He never cared about these matches. This one won Bobby Heenan over. Definitely. One of my favorite cruiserweight matches, it's not here, but I'm mentioning it because I mentioned like Psychosis. Juventud in his debut, he's walking backwards down the aisle and he trips over the steps and falls on the floor. But anyway, yeah, this match, it has it all. It's great. And Mysterio's look, he's dressed in like this Phantom outfit, and Eddie keeps trying to rip the mask and the outfit off. It's so good.
I mean, it comes to a point where as he's ripping it, I believe it's the right eye. He's trying to rip it off from the eye, and you can kind of see Ray's, like, you know, the right side of his head. You know, it's like you don't see his face,
but he's got his face painted black.
Yeah, so it's like I mean, you see, because this isn't like a regular mask. This is not a regular mask. This is built into his gear, so it's not like you know. He could just rip it off like you'd be able to rip off regular mask. No, this was built into his gear, into his. This is not a mask. It's a full body suit that goes over his head and all around his body. It's really a sight to see. Oh yeah, for the outfit alone. It's purple and black. They made a figure from it. Yeah, WWE did. Yeah, no, and this was
it's really good.
I mean, this is
It's a
just
great
excellent.
match.
Yeah, I mean, this is just excellent match between both
And
men.
this match
And
absolutely steals the show on this show.
oh yeah,
Nothing is as good as this match.
I agree.
And then we go from that great match to the worst match of the night.
Yeah,
Get it right out of there.
yeah,
Alex Wright, who, I'm sorry, I don't know if you like Alex Wright. To me, he is completely overrated.
yeah.
That's one that can. I swear to God, in one of the WCW games, I think it was Nitro. It might have been Thunder, but I think it was Nitro. In fact, it had to be Nitro because Thunder wasn't out yet, so it had to be Nitro. They had these promos in Nitro. If you scroll over the guy to cut a promo, Alex Wright, I swear to God, he does his promo. This is Alex Wright, the German. What? Like, just imagine anybody doing that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is Rusev, the Bulgarian.
Yeah. and then, not to mention, as he's coming out to the ring, he does this like weird dance.
The dance, yeah. Oh man.
I think if anything, my brother and I, we were always making fun of that. It's like you know.
Oh, it was so bad, man.
Yeah.
It was so bad. And he's with Deborah McMichael here because he's wrestling Steve McMichael, and Steve at the time was feuding with Deborah, and it was stupid. Everything about this match is stupid. Basically, this match is where they McMichaeled it. Yeah. I'm using that from now on. That's my new term. They McMichaeled it.
You got to.
Then we go to a match that's completely underrated. Jacqueline versus the Disco Inferno. Holy crap. You know what this match is, by the way? I've said this to people before. Everybody remembers Jazz's debut in ECW when she wrestled Jason Knight. This is that match.
Yeah.
Done before that match.
Yeah.
Jacqueline and Disco does not get the credit he deserves for being such a tremendous worker. And same with Jacqueline. And here, oh my God, these two just... They tore it up. They went like 10 minutes too. It's like, wow.
Actually, I know one of his former tag team partners. I personally know
Disco.
Yeah, I know one of Disco Inferno's former tag team partners. This was like after WCW time.
Also, probably TNA Glenn Gilberti days, maybe.
Yeah, probably. And this was my friend Ralph. He went by the name Tony Roma, and I mean, he would tell me stories about Glenn. You know, he would tell me, you know, like now and then he'll tell me a couple stories, and it would be cool to get him on a podcast, to just just have just have a good discussion on a lot of different things. You know, I mean, I'd
love to have Disco on the show and we play him in with his music, because everybody loved that music. The Disco Fever.
You know what? I'll talk to Ralph. See if they're still in contact and see if we can get that done.
Yeah, that'd be cool. We then go to Kurt Hennig versus Ric Flair. It's a disqualification, and I know Kurt Hennig, Ric Flair, great matches they've had before, but if you want to see these two in their best match, go watch the match they had on Monday Night Raw, the night that Flair lost, and it was going to be his last match before going back to WCW. That's the match of theirs, and this is not that, so no. No, thank you. But then we get even worse. Yeah. We're not even in the worst yet. Nope. We got Lex Luger versus Scott Hall. Submission match, and Larry Zbyszko is the guest referee. Yeah. The least talked about this match, the better. Yeah. Then we go to a match that, again, this whole series of matches these guys had was great. I don't think this was the best of their series. No. But we have a Las Vegas sudden death match, Randy Savage versus Diamond Dallas Page. Holy crap. I love all the Page and Savage matches. Again, I think the Spring Stampede 98 one is the highlight of that feud, but this was also really good. And they had time with this, too. They got like 18 minutes to work with, and it's so good. It's so much of a better match for Savage, because Savage had been having the horrible match at Halloween Havoc 95 because he was injured. horrible match at Halloween Havoc 96. Savage just was having all these bad matches in WCW. This was really his turnaround to me, the feud with DDP.
Definitely.
And then we get the horrible cage match, Roddy Piper versus Hollywood Hogan.
Yeah.
Let's start with this.
Yeah.
Every week, this is during the time Sting still is not wrestling. Sting had the Fall Brawl 96 incident with the two Stings, and then he kind of went on his own and starts appearing as the Crow in the rafters. He's not wrestling. He finally points his bat at Hogan because he wants Hogan in a match. They're agreeing they're going to give him a match with Hogan at Starrcade. So they're building to this for over a year. And meanwhile, Sting keeps appearing and attacking people, but Sting also keeps having like people pretend to be him. And security guards are getting confused because all these kids and all these people keep jumping guardrails dressed as Sting, and they're plants in the audience. Well, here we got one that wasn't a plant in the audience. This cage is massive. I'm talking like the current WWE cell size. Yep. This thing's like 30 feet in the air at least. Yep. Some kid jumps the guardrail with Sting makeup on and he scales the whole cage. Yep. He gets stuck at the top. I bet this is cut out of the network. You probably won't see it on the network. No. Find the original broadcast, you'll see it, or it's probably on YouTube. Who knows? But he gets stuck at the top of the cage. He finally gets over into the cage. After all this work of climbing the cage, he gets in the cage and gets beat up by Randy Savage and Hogan, while Piper is handcuffed to the cage. And literally they go off the air with them beating up Piper and beating up this fan. Yep. Oh, God. Let's move on. I can't even talk about this. And then we're going to something even worse with 98, but let's at least move on. Yeah. 98 is dubbed wrestling's most terrifying event. And man, did they call that one. This pay-per-view is known for many reasons, mainly because they made no money on this pay-per-view. Because all the money made, they had to give it back. This pay-per-view is also known as the pay-per-view to watch for all the wrong reasons. Yep. We will start with the good first, and that's the opening match. Chris Jericho versus Raven. Holy crap, I love this match. Right off the bat, Raven's acting like he's not going to have the match, and they're not going to do this match, and they just keep teasing that they're not going to have it. They finally do, and it's a great match. Jericho wins by submission with a Lion Tamer to keep the WCW World Television Championship. This is Jericho at his best. Raven at his best. Steals the whole show for me. What do you think?
No, I agree. I got nothing to say. Right. These two had a great match. You know, I mean,
I love the whole build-up even of the teasing that we're not going to have the match. But at the same time, I wonder, did all that dragging on, because the match is only like 7 minutes, but there was like 20 minutes when you count all that drag on. Is that the reason for the incident at the end? Who knows? They may have single-handedly caused that problem.
Yeah, I mean, that would be good. That would be good to know, to find out at some point, But
then we go to Raft versus Ming. We don't need this. No. There's so many matches on this show that should have been pre-show matches, and that also would have done away with the incident that happened at the end.
Exactly.
This is one of those matches, and there's a couple more I'll mention when we get to them. Disco Inferno and Juventud Guerrera. Again, Disco is amazing, and he shows that here, too. He's so good in this match. And this isn't even his only match on the card. He gives us a great match here for like 10 minutes with Hoovy, and it's like, wow, great job, Disco, and you're not even done yet? Wow, can't wait to see you again. Exactly. But then we go to our buddy we just mentioned, Alex Wright versus Fit Finlay. Holy crap, again, pre-show, people. That's what it's for. Yeah. Put it on a pre-show. Yeah. Or don't have it at all.
Exactly.
Perry Saturn versus Lodi. Oh my God, another horrible one. This was when Lodi was holding up signs about everything, and Perry Saturn is wrestling in a dress all the time.
Yeah.
God. I'd prefer Moppy over that dress.
So
Then we go to Billy Kidman versus the Disco Inferno. Again, Disco looking great again for like 10 more minutes.
exactly.
And it's just such Disco, like I said, so underrated. Go back and watch any of his matches.
I mean,
They're pretty much all good.
I was a big fan of Disco Inferno. I mean, first, obviously the music and the gimmick, but he was just a great wrestler.
See, at the time, I hated him. I loved his match with Sabu, ironically, on Nitro before.
No, for me, he was, I was a fan. He was, he was one of my favorites. Again, but mainly originally was, his entrance music and the gimmick. But as I got older and I really started seeing his work, and I became even more of a fan.
Right.
Yeah.
We're already way over our time, though, so I'm trying to rush through this because we're trying to get through.
Yep.
We're almost done. Rick Steiner and Buff Bagwell versus the Giant and Scott Steiner. This match makes absolutely no sense. Nope. We see Buff Bagwell in a freaking Bill Clinton mask, I think it was. Yeah. Everything about this is stupid. And it leads to a match between Rick and Scott in a singles match, which is also stupid. Again, this is all filler crap we did not need, and it ruins the ending. Yep. Then Scott Hall, this is during his drunken gimmick, battles Kevin Nash. They go 15 minutes to a count out. Oh my God, this show is just really packing on the bad matches. Then we go to Bret Hart versus Sting. Now, the week before this on Nitro, they actually gave us a good novelty. They had Bret Hart team with Hollywood Hogan against the Ultimate Warrior and Sting to reunite the Blade Warriors. I actually still like that match only because of its nostalgia, but the match is terrible. Sting and Bret Hart would have a couple matches in their time. Every other one was good. This one was not. Nope. This one ends with the bat being used. Yes. Bret Hart knocks out Sting with his own baseball bat and wins this match by knockout. When have you ever seen a wrestling match end with a knockout? Bad. Yeah. But it's not the worst, because the worst is still to come. Yep. Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior was one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history. It is the worst match in Halloween Havoc history.
I agree.
This match is worth watching for all the wrong reasons. Particularly, Hogan and Warrior's timing is off on everything. They both keep stumbling and actually falling over. But then Hogan goes for this spot to try and light some flash paper and throw a fireball at the Warrior. Because, the Sheik was in trouble a few years earlier, but Hogan hasn't. But the lighter basically explodes in Hogan's hand, and it burns all the hair off his face, burns up his mustache and his eyebrows, and then he throws a piece of unlit flash paper at the Warrior, and the Warrior sells it. Yep. Oh, this is just
I think Warrior selling a piece of paper, a piece of paper hitting them is just as bad as the finger poke of doom.
I like Finger Poke of Doom. That was better than this. But yeah, at this point now, this is where it gets where everybody remembers, because now they have already hit their time. Yep. And it's now 11 o'clock. Yep. Do you know where your pay-per-view is? It's not on the air anymore, guys. No, they're showing the replay, but guess what? There's a main event that's going on live. And it's not on television because they're showing the Raven and Jericho match on the replay at this point. So WCW figures this out the next day and decides, well, we'll give away the match on Nitro. So on Nitro, they air Goldberg versus DDP, and this match is tremendous. This is arguably the best match of Goldberg's career. As far as wrestling ability, this is definitely the best match of his career. DDP just carries Goldberg through this whole match, and it's so good. And Goldberg wins to keep the streak going. DDP does not get the title. But again, they gave this match away the next night for free on Nitro because of this incident of them running out of time. And because of that, people who bought the pay-per-view for that match, they called their cable companies, hey, it's not fair to give it away for free. I want a refund. And then other people who didn't buy it for that reason, but they wanted refunds anyway because of how bad the event was.
Yeah.
They called their cable company and said the same thing, and they got refunds.
Yep.
WCW gave out millions of dollars of refunds and ended up paying to do the show.
Yep.
That's how bad it was. Instead of making money, they paid out money. It was so bad. But we then go to another bad show. This is one of my This is one of my least favorite shows, and it's definitely my least favorite Halloween Havoc of all of them. Even with all the bad stuff I talked about, this is definitely the worst. I talked about great Disco Inferno matches. At the 1999 Halloween Havoc, they opened the show with Disco Inferno versus Lash LaRue, and even Disco couldn't carry Lash LaRue to a freaking fight. This is horrible.
Nobody could carry Lash LaRue.
No. Even Lash LaRue couldn't carry Lash LaRue. And then we go to the Harlem Heat versus Billy Kidman and Conan and Brian Knobbs and Hugh Morris, known as the First Family. What the heck is that? Why don't I remember this? I don't remember any of this.
I don't either. I do not.
Don't remember any of this. I can't tell you anything about it. It was 5 minutes long. Couldn't be any good.
I think
Eddie Guerrero and Perry Saturn in a disqualification match. Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember this match at all. So I do remember Brad Armstrong versus Berlin with the wall. Ironically, I remember that. That was garbage. Rick Steiner and Chris Benoit. Do you remember this? I don't remember this either.
No,
wow.
No.
I haven't seen this show in so long. Maybe I should go back and watch it, although I probably don't want to. I do remember this. Lex Luger versus Bret Hart ending in a submission with Luger making Bret submit. This was during the time when Lex they were doing the Millionaires Club gimmick at this point, and Lex was kind of part of that. And this was just not good. And then if that's not good for you, how about the 3-second match with Sting and Hogan for the WCW Heavyweight title?
Yeah.
Basically Sting comes out, Hogan comes out, Hogan's all dressed in black with black jeans and everything, and he basically lays down and lets Sting pin him. Reason? Well, that's a backstage politic thing. If you know anything about Hogan didn't want to do the job. So instead he did the job without having a match. Then we go to Goldberg versus Sid Vicious for the United States Heavyweight Championship, and Goldberg wins. This is during the time when Goldberg was feuding with Sid and then went out and smashed his car and injured his hand and all, and then he had Sid's car crushed with a car crusher, and Sid goes outside and sees his car and just starts screaming, "Oh my God, Goldberg!" It's so funny. That's better than this match. Yep. DDP and Ric Flair in a strap match. This is also terrible. And then the main event, Goldberg faces Sting, who had just won the title earlier in the night. Well, not just won the title, but he defended the title against Hogan, and then he loses it to Goldberg. So Goldberg is the new champion after a 3-minute fiasco. Oh my God, seriously, Halloween Havoc 99? There's not one good match on there. Nope. You know,
nothing memorable about it.
I can't remember half the show, and the stuff I do remember was just bad. Then we go to Halloween Havoc 2000. This one is remembered for all the wrong reasons. We start with the Natural Born Thrillers, Mark Jindrak and Sean O'Hare, defeating the Filthy Animals, Billy Kidman, and an unmasked Rey Mysterio Jr. with Conan and the Boogie Nights of Disco and Alex Wright. This was when Disco, by the way, had changed his name to just Disco, and it was Disquo.
Yep.
And he was like more of like a techno dancer type thing. It was really weird.
Yeah.
This is not a good match in any sense. But then we go to a match that is for the Hardcore Championship. It's a hardcore match. It's Big Reno versus Sergeant AWOL, a.k.a. The Wall. Now, here's what's interesting about this match. They go backstage, and they have the WCW online set up for AOL. These are cardboard computers.
Yeah.
They pick up a monitor. There's no wires or anything, because, again, this is cardboard. And they use it as weapons. Yeah. And the announcers are actually playing it off that these are real monitors. Yeah. It's so bad, it's hilariously bad. Just to go back and watch this, you'll laugh your butt up at how horrible it is.
No.
And that's WCW's hardcore division.
No.
Then we go to the Misfits in Action, the MIA, Lieutenant Loco, and Corporal Kajan. Well, Loco is Chavo Guerrero Jr., who we've talked about before. I am not a fan of. And Kajan is Lash LaRue, who we just talked about is horrible. And they wrestled the perfect event, if you want to call it wrestling, Sean Stasiak and Chuck Palumbo. This is another terrible match, 9 minutes long, and it's garbage. And then we go to the Filthy Animals, Conan and Tigress, in a mixed tag team match against Shane Douglas and Tori Wilson. This was during the whole time when the Filthy Animals were feuding with Shane Douglas, and Shane Douglas had the match infamously before this with Billy Kidman for the services of Tori Wilson, which he won, and then they had the Viagra on a pole match so that Shane could use the Viagra on Billy Kidman's girlfriend, but Billy Kidman won, so Shane couldn't use the Viagra and therefore couldn't sleep with Tori. Yep. I kid you not, this is how Vince Russo booked it. Yep. Then we go to Buff Bagwell versus David Flair in the First Blood DNA match. This is the big, again, Vince Russo's booking. Yep. At the time, Stacy Keibler had announced that she was pregnant, and David Flair was not the father. So David Flair goes on a tyrant to try and find out who the father is, and he thinks it's Buff. Buff refuses to have a blood test. So David Flair challenges him to a First Blood match where if he makes him bleed, he's going to take some of his blood to sample it to see if Buff's the father. Again, what the heck is going on in WCW? Ask Vince Russo. Then we go to a kickboxing match of Ernest Miller with Miss Jones versus Mike Sanders with Sean Stasiak and Chuck Palumbo. This is another terrible match because Mike Sanders is great on the mic. He's not a great wrestler, and he definitely is not a kickboxer. And Ernest Miller, while he can fight, he's often been known as like a Tybo ripoff. What was that guy's name from Tybo?
Oh,
Billy Blanks.
Yeah. Well, here's the
Billy
thing.
Blanks.
Ernest Miller, he is a legitimate fightor. You know,
the Ayatollah.
Yeah. But he is a legitimate martial artist. You know, and he you know, and it was just to put Mike Sanders and then defeating Ernest Miller. The only way it was possible was by count out. You know, to make it believable, I guess, or whatever. But you know, it's just, I don't know. The match itself was stupid, and it lasted way too long.
Well, this was for the commissionership because at the time Ernest Miller was the commissioner. Mm-hmm. Shane Douglas came out and cost Miller the match, and Mike Sanders became the new commissioner of the company. Mm-hmm. Then we go to the match that has the most infamous moment in history of WCW, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Mike Awesome versus Vampiro. Mike Awesome is still in ECW mentality. He believes that he can take anything he wants from the fans. Yep. These two fight in the crowd. Mike Awesome tries to grab a cane from an old man. Yep. This is not a plant. It's not scripted, folks. This is real as it gets. The old man wrestles the cane away from Mike Awesome and takes it and hits Mike as hard as he can, knocking him down the steps. And Mike suffers a concussion, and Vampiro has to carry him through the rest of the match. Yep. It's ridiculous. Yep. Then we go to Hugh Morris's new character, part of the Misfits Action. He's now General Rection. But not just General Rection, he's known as General E. Rection. Oh, God almighty. He battles Lance Storm here and Jim Duggan. Jim Duggan, this was during the time when Jim Duggan had turned on the U.S. and gone to Canada, shaved his beard. At this point, I'll take him over Steve Austin again at this point. Lance Storm, however, is amazing during this time. He's the U.S. champion, but he's not actually the U.S. champion. He's renamed it the Canadian title. Eventually, Lance would also win the hardcore title, which he would rename to the Saskatchewan Hardcore International title, SHIT. That's right, Rosie. You didn't come up with it. Lance Storm did. Then we go to the match. Everybody remembers this show for the most, if they even remember this show. Jeff Jarrett versus Sting. Leading up to this match, Jeff Jarrett had a whole bunch of Sting lookalikes from different eras of Sting's life kind of coming after him. And they all come full circle here in this match, and Sting has to beat them up. So he basically has to battle himself to find his way to get to Jarrett. And Jarrett finally is able to use this to beat Sting and win the match. Horrible match. A decent concept, I guess, but oh man, this was not executed well at all.
If WWE was doing this match now, with the same, it would be a cinematic match.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when they had all the guys like lowering from the ceiling and all, even during this. Yep. Then we go to the match that to me is the main event. It's horrible, but it is the main event, even though it's not the main event. And we'll get to the main event too. But Booker T versus Scott Steiner with Medeja. This is when Scott Steiner had just gone off the deep end with bad matches. Let's not forget the cage match they had at a pay-per-view before this, but oh my god, everything to do with this was just terrible. Booker T is the champion. He won it at Bash at the Beach after the Hogan incident. And then, he goes on this feud with Scott Steiner, and eventually the two would even fight at the final Nitro. But oh my god, Scott Steiner at this point, he just couldn't do anything anymore. And this was a disqualification match even. So the main event, though, was 3 minutes long. It's Goldberg in a handicap match against Chronic, Brian Adams, and Brian Clark. And it's elimination style. Yep. So within 3 minutes, Goldberg eliminates both Brian Clark and Brian Adams. Who did they tick off? And that is the final match that would ever take place at a Halloween Havoc. Goldberg versus Chronic. But now, 20 years later, that's all going to change because NXT is running their own version of Halloween Havoc on October 28th, and I do look forward to hearing about whether or not it's any good or not. We are running way over. Are there any questions that were asked that we missed?
Nope. Just John saying, way earlier today that this is good stuff, and no questions, no nothing.
All right. Well, good stuff indeed. We did it. We went through 89 through 2000, and we did it in just under 3 hours.
And we did not get too sidetracked.
No, we did not. But yeah, we made it under 3 hours. That was my goal, to try and get it under 3 hours, and we did that. So if you don't have anything to add, I think we will close this one off. What do you think?
No, I'm good. I'm good, brother. Go right ahead.
All right.